Chapter 199. Lin Yan was speechless. Pei Yutong, who was busy cutting the onions, was crying inwardly, "Big brother, can you be any more obvious in your favoritism?" Lin Yan's heart, which had just calmed down, began to race again. She coughed softly and hurriedly took the apron from Pei Yuching. She helped him put it on and went to the back to tie it. Pei Yuching replied, "Thank you." Lin Yan coughed. "You're welcome. You're welcome." Pei Yuching had always looked aloof and distant, but he didn't hold back when it came to flirting with someone. Pei Yutong busied himself in the kitchen. As for Lin Yan, she had been helping Pei Yuching put on the apron. Dinner was ready in no time. Pei Yutong and Pei Nanxiu served it to the table. The four of them sat facing each other. Lin Yan stared at the delicious dishes on the table, and her appetite was piqued.
"Wow.
I didn't expect you to be so good at cooking, Mr. Pei." Pei Yutong was speechless. Pei Nanxiu was speechless. Pei Yuching picked up a piece of sweet and sour pork for Lin Yan.
Try it."
The pork ribs were exquisite, and the gravy was rich and tempting. "Okay, thank you." Lin Yan picked it up and stuffed it into her mouth. Pei Yutong and Pei Nanxiu held their breaths as they stared at Lin Yan. Lin Yan took a bite of it. It must be delicious. In the next second, when the taste buds on the tip of his tongue tasted the ribs, his entire body froze. This feeling, if one had to describe it, was as if someone had hammered the top of his head with a big stick from behind. **T. What kind of weird smell is this? Lin Yan couldn't describe it. It looked delicious, so why was the taste so indescribable? Lin Yan didn't dare move her mouth. The taste was too lethal, and she felt as though she would die if she took another bite. Initially, she had wanted to save money, so she had thought that it would be better to eat at home. In the end, it was indeed free, but it would cost her life. In a few seconds, Lin Yan felt as though she had experienced an earthquake and a tsunami. She had managed to hang on because she had a strong will to maintain her persona. Lin Yan looked calm and composed. Pei Yutong stared at her and asked, "Big sister-in-law, is it delicious?" Lin Yan swallowed the horrible taste as she glowered at him.
"All right, eat. 2.
"Good.
Eat."
Yes." No wonder Pei Yutong and Pei Nanxiu reacted so strangely when they heard that Pei Yuching was going to cook. Why didn't he just tell her directly? Pei Yuching picked up another piece of braised fish for her. "Thank you. I'll do it myself." Lin Yan had no choice but to bite the bullet. There shouldn't be anything worse than that sweet and sour pork ribs in this world, right? Lin Yan swallowed the braised fish with her chopsticks and chuckled to herself. As expected, no one is perfect in this world. Who would have thought that the seemingly perfect Pei Yuching would be so lousy at cooking? She was curious as to how he was able to make the food taste like this. During the competition, he had flown to many countries and tried many different cuisines. Even the English cuisine, which was known as dark cuisine, couldn't compare to his. Chapter 200. When she finally swallowed it, Lin Yan grinned and said, "Yum. It's delicious." "Delicious?" Pei Yutong studied Lin Yan's smile and felt incredulous. He hurriedly picked up a piece of braised fish. After that, he now deeply believed in one thing. Sister-in-law's love for eldest brother was absolute. Then, everyone started to eat. Lin Yan tasted every dish, hoping that there would be one that she could eat. In the end, there wasn't a single one. Lin Yan studied Pei Yuching curiously as she ate the rice. In the end, she watched as Pei Yuching ate the dishes without batting an eyelid. It was as though he didn't find them disgusting at all. Pei Yutong and Pei Nanxiu, who were sitting opposite them, looked rather calm as they ate. Lin Yan began to doubt herself. What was going on? Why didn't the three of them react at all when they were eating such disgusting food? Did the Pei family have such weird tastes? Lin Yan felt as though her taste buds were going numb after this meal. Pei Yuching sensed that something was wrong with Lin Yan's expression. "Is it salty?" No. It's just right. I'm just a little thirsty. Do you have water?" asked Lin Yan. Pei Yuching stood up to get some water. Pei Yutong's face contorted in anger. "Big sister-in-law, I told you that we went out to eat. Why did you have to eat at home?" Why did you have to do this? I was already injured today, yet I have to suffer like this. Why is my life so bitter? Even if I get beaten up by Song Yaonan again, it's better than eating Big Brother's food. Lin Yan's face darkened. So, you think that it's disgusting too? I thought that the Pei family had such weird tastes. Pei Yutong quipped, big sister-in-law. I believe one thing now, Lin Yan asked. What? Pei Yutong quipped, you definitely love Big Brother. You ate such disgusting food with a smile on your face. How much love do you have to have? Other than us, you're the only one who dares to eat Big Brother's food. Big sister-in-law, you're indeed my Big Brother's destined woman. Lin Yan was speechless. Destined, my foot. When Pei Yuqing returned with a glass of water, Pei Yutong swiftly finished his bowl of rice and sprang to his feet. I'm done. Well, I'm just a small team racer with no power, no background. I won't stay the night. I'm going back to my place. Big brother, big sister-in-law, bye-bye. Pei Nanxiu wiped his mouth and stood up. Big brother, big sister-in-law, enjoy your meal. I have a schedule tomorrow, so I'm leaving now. Lin Yan was left alone as she stared at the dishes on the table in front of her. You guys ran away just like that? They were the only ones left in the living room. Lin Yan gritted her teeth and quietly ate 2 bowls of rice and 3 glasses of water. Then, she quietly helped him clear the table. After clearing the table, Lin Yan and Pei Yuqing washed the dishes together. As she washed the dishes, she thought that she should be able to leave after washing the dishes, right? However, how could he take the initiative to bring it up? She should be the one who wanted to spend every second with him. She couldn't possibly take the initiative to say that she wanted to leave. Lin Yan was lost in her thoughts as she washed the dishes. Suddenly, a cold hand grabbed her wrist. Lin Yan, who was startled, turned to Pei Yuqing. Mr. Pei, what's wrong? Leave it. I'll wash it. Pei Yuqing stared at the bowls that Lin Yan was washing and sounded helpless. Lin Yan's eyes darted to the bowls that she was washing. *T. She hadn't controlled her strength properly, and she had broken a few bowls. Lin Yan was exasperated. Sorry. I've been strong since I was young. Pei Yuqing replied, wait for me outside. Lin Yan replied, oh, okay. P.S. The 30,000 words are over. I'm begging for a monthly ticket. The 3 activities of QQ Reading Book Friends Circle have started. Everyone can participate. At the end of this chapter, 8 babies will be given a keychain each. You can choose the style of the keychain. You can request for a monthly ticket or a full subscription. In addition, I recommend Yi Bei's new book, The Phoenix of the 9 Heavens. It's written by a strong female character. Chapter 201. Lin Yan had no choice but to sit down on the couch in the living room. She then grabbed a pillow to cover her bag. This meal made her want to break up with him. When could she leave? Lin Yan sat in the living room, feeling as though time had passed. Finally, she heard familiar footsteps behind her. Then, a shadow shrouded her, accompanied by the faint smell of tobacco. Pei Yuqing stood in front of her and slowly got down on one knee. Lin Yan was speechless. This posture, as a straight woman, she didn't feel anything when she saw those sensational and romantic men kneeling on one knee in front of their girlfriends on TV. However, when Pei Yuqing suddenly knelt on one knee in front of her, she felt as though she had a concussion. What was going on? Pei Yuqing didn't look at her. Instead, he was looking at the girl's left leg. He extended his hand and placed it on the girl's calf. Instinctively, Lin Yan retracted her leg. Pei Yuqing said, don't move. Lin Yan was speechless. Lin Yan didn't dare move. Then, she watched as Pei Yuqing rolled her pants up to her knees. Probably because of the large amount of exercise today, her calves and knees were already a little red and swollen. Lin Yan's expression froze when she saw her injured left leg. If anyone else had been in that tragic car accident, they would have died. However, she was lucky to be alive. Given her recovery ability, she would be able to recover slowly as long as she didn't court death. Pei Yuqing rolled up her pants and took out a small white porcelain bottle. He poured some light green liquid on his palm and placed his palm on her calf. Then he began to massage it slowly. Lin Yan was startled by his words. She had a match and a fight today. In fact, after the match, her leg was already aching. However, she didn't show it at all, nor did she mention it. Even Pei Yutong hadn't known. How had Pei Yuqing known that her leg was hurting and pinpointed the exact spot? The cool feeling quickly became warm due to the temperature of his palm. It soothed the pain bit by bit, and the numbness and pain also lessened bit by bit. She was used to enduring this pain and would never tell anyone about it. Lin Yan watched as the man massaged her leg without saying a word. An indescribable feeling welled up in her heart. The living room was quiet. It was dark outside the window. Pei Yuqing massaged her for about 10 minutes before he stopped. Then he continued to kneel on one knee. He reached out and slowly rolled up the right side of the girl's clothes. Repeating the action of massaging her calf, he applied the ointment on his palm and placed it on her waist. Lin Yan was shocked once again. This was also one of the parts of her body that had been affected by the car accident. Back then, she was injured so badly that she almost became paralyzed. Because her body recovered very quickly, it was not serious now. However, she would still feel a little sore from excessive exercise. How did this man know everything? Was he a roundworm in her stomach? Lin Yan sat there quietly, not daring to move a muscle. As Lin Yan's imagination ran wild, Pei Yuqing said, "Take off your jacket." Instinctively, Lin Yan obeyed.
Oh.
Okay. Pei Yuqing studied the girl's obedient behavior and couldn't help chuckling softly. Then, he lifted his head and gazed at the girl with an indescribable emotion. "You're so obedient. You trust me so much?" Lin Yan coughed softly and replied, "Of course I trust you. Mr. Pei, you're a gentleman. How could I not trust you?" Miss Lin, Pei Yuqing's long fingers caressed the girl's waist gently. He paused for a moment, and his eyes darkened. "Who told you that I'm a gentleman?" Chapter 202. Who told you that I'm a gentleman? The moment Pei Yuqing said that, Lin Yan's brain froze. The spot on her waist that had been touched started to burn hotter and hotter. The heat spread throughout her body. The oppressive and dangerous aura that Pei Yuqing had exuded made Lin Yan instinctively feel uneasy and fearful. Even though she tried her best to maintain her composure, she instinctively shrank her neck. The man, who seemed to sense the uneasiness in the girl's eyes, retracted his gaze and chuckled softly. "Don't worry. I won't do anything to you." Lin Yan heaved a sigh of relief when she heard him. Her heart, which had been in her throat, finally calmed down. As soon as her heart settled, Pei Yuqing added, "At least not now." Lin Yan was speechless. Did he mean that he would in the future? After Pei Yuqing applied the ointment on the girl, he tidied up her clothes carefully and said, "Unless you ask me to." Lin Yan was speechless. Pei Yuqing's words were full of twists and turns, and Lin Yan's cheeks began to burn again. Instinctively, Lin Yan mumbled to herself to console herself, "I'm joking. I'm definitely joking." Pei Yuqing wouldn't be so desperate. Lin Yan hurriedly changed the topic. "Thank you, Mr. Pei, but how did you know that I was injured?" Pei Yuqing's eyes flickered as he replied casually, "I guessed it because you couldn't move around." Lin Yan asked, "That's impressive, he could guess it? And he was so accurate?" There was no mistake at all. Although Lin Yan was puzzled, she didn't probe further. Indeed, he was a big shot. His observation skills were better than most people's. When he finally finished applying the medicine, Lin Yan hurriedly said, "Mr. Pei, it's getting late. I'll head back now. I won't disturb your rest." Pei Yuqing replied, "I'll send you back." Lin Yan had been worried that Pei Yuqing would ask her to stay the night. She hadn't expected him to agree so readily. He hadn't made any requests. That was true. How could a man like Pei Yuqing do anything to her? She must be dreaming. At this thought, Lin Yan felt more at ease. She rose to her feet and walked out happily. Pei Yuqing interrupted her as she reached the door. "Miss Lin, you left your bag behind." "Bag? What bag?"
Ah, right.
Her canvas bag. Ah. Lin Yan was scared out of her wits. She turned around and dashed in his direction at the speed of lightning. The more she panicked, the messier it became. She was originally going to grab her bag, but because she was in too much of a hurry, she lost her grip and the canvas bag fell to the ground. The poster rolled out of the canvas bag and spread out on the ground. A limited edition autographed poster of Pei Nanxiu was laid open in front of them. Lin Yan was speechless. He was speechless 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds passed. The living room was dead silent, and only the sound of heartbeats could be heard. Lin Yan wished that she could bang her head against the wall and kill herself.
Why?
Why did she always panic in front of Pei Yuqing? Why did she make such stupid mistakes? Could she at least have a chance to not crash? Chapter 203. This was simply a huge case of being cheated on. Ever since a second consciousness had appeared in her body, her life seemed to have entered a difficult phase. Lin Yan didn't dare look into Pei Yuqing's eyes. Given Pei Yuqing's way of thinking, he wouldn't be able to understand the existence of an idol. Besides, she had repeatedly said that she loved him dearly and couldn't tolerate anyone else. Yet, she had hidden another man's photo. This man was his brother. Lin Yan felt that she was a scumbag. She felt so wronged. However, there was nothing she could do. That idiot had gotten into trouble, so she had to bear the consequences. Lin Yan bent down swiftly and rolled up Pei Nanxi's poster. Then, she said calmly, "It's all third young master's fault. When I went to watch his competition today, he insisted that I give it to me. I had no choice but to accept it. After all, as his sister-in-law, it's my duty to support second young master's career." Before Lin Yan could finish her sentence, she felt a tight grip around her waist. She was pulled into a warm embrace, and she dropped the poster in her hands. Then, a gentle kiss landed on her lips. It was different from the first time he had accidentally touched her forehead. It was as gentle as a feather, and it was different from the playful kiss he had given her after she had complained about her low blood sugar level. It was also different from the farewell kiss he had given her that night. This time, his movements were as gentle and careful as ever. However, for some reason, Lin Yan sensed a sense of violence and fear from his kiss that penetrated deep into her soul. It was as if a gentle net had enveloped them. At first, there was no threat. In fact, it could even cause one to sink deep into it. However, gradually the net tightened. How could this be? He was such a gentle and gentlemanly man. Why did she feel so afraid all of a sudden? Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through Lin Yan's head. Pei Yuqing didn't linger for long. He left immediately. At the same time, the fear and the sudden pain in her head disappeared, as if everything that had just happened was just an illusion. Lin Yan snapped back to her senses and instinctively touched her mouth. Why again? Pei Yuqing bent down and helped her roll up the poster. He placed it in the canvas bag and handed it to the girl. As the girl stared at him in bewilderment, he stretched out his slender fingers and placed them on her lips. In a low, hoarse voice, he said, "This is to thank you." Lin Yan's cheeks flushed. Thank her for supporting Pei Nanxiu? Why did this man never play by the rules? What else could she do? She could only smile and say, "You're welcome. It's my job." No matter what, this trial was finally over. Pei Yuqing walked her to the door. He seemed to sense that the girl would be nervous in his presence, so he didn't send her off personally. Instead, he arranged for a chauffeur to take her home. Lin Yan waved her hands. "I'll head back now."
Good night, Mr. Pei.
Pei Yuqing replied, "Good night." Lin Yan's car sped away in the darkness of the night and disappeared into the darkness. When the car disappeared from his sight, he lit a cigarette and stood in the night breeze for a while. After he finished smoking, he turned around and returned to the villa. Chapter 205. Soon, the chauffeur dropped Lin Yan off. Lin Yan had finally made it home alive. Today was the day she had tried her best to survive. When she reached home, Lin Yan realized that there was a missed call on her phone. Lin Yan's expression changed drastically when she saw the missed call. She dialed the number hastily. "Hello? Is there any news?" A familiar voice came from the other end of the phone. "Yes, I just found some new clues." Lin Yan clutched her phone tightly. "What clues?" The person on the other end of the phone suddenly fell silent. He didn't speak immediately, as if he was considering his words. Lin Yan's heart sank to the bottom of the pit of her stomach. Is it bad news? The man sighed and said, I've locked onto one of the organizations, and I'm pretty sure that organization is most likely the same laboratory that kidnapped you and your brother. After some twists and turns, I barely managed to find some information. In that laboratory, there are many people like you and your brother who have been captured. Moreover, all the experimental subjects are ranked according to their individual qualifications. Graded? Lin Yan frowned. She had been too young at the time, so she couldn't remember many things clearly. However, she vaguely remembered that every child had a label on them. Every once in a while, the label would change. Could it be that they were being graded? Yes, the man replied. The man said, test subjects have different levels of aptitude. Your body's aptitude was originally very good. After the experiment, I estimate that your level has most likely reached level A. Of course, I don't rule out the possibility that they are even more ambitious and have even more terrifying test subjects above level A. Lin Yan shuddered in fear. What about my brother? Based on my brother's condition, the man replied, based on what you've told me, your brother's qualifications were definitely at the lowest grade. If you hadn't been by his side to protect him, he wouldn't have been able to survive the competition with so many test subjects. Later, you told me that your brother was taken away by them and forcibly separated from you. Is that right? That's right. Lin Yan's back stiffened. She had a bad feeling about this. The voice on the other end of the phone paused for a moment, then said in a serious tone, I understand that in that laboratory, everything below that level will be destroyed. His words struck Lin Yan like a bolt from the blue.
What did you say?
Destroy.
Yes.
So, it is very likely that when your brother was forcibly taken away, your brother had already been. Impossible. Lin Yan interrupted him agitatedly. The person on the other end of the phone knew that she couldn't accept it, so he tried to comfort her in a gentle tone. Don't be discouraged. Maybe the information I got was wrong. Maybe they took your brother away not to destroy it, or maybe your brother escaped like you. Lin Yan almost lost her balance. She stumbled and leaned against the wall as she muttered, You're right. Everything is possible. Maybe my brother is lucky. That child was so kind that he couldn't even bear to kill an ant. How could God bear to treat him like this? I will continue to investigate for you. I will inform you as soon as I have any news. However, I advise you to prepare for the worst. Chapter 206. At the same time, at JM Corporation late at night, the huge conference room was brightly lit. All the directors and senior members of the company had gathered, waiting for Pei Yuqing to give them an explanation. That kid. Does he really think that he's the leader of the Pei family? How dare he abolish the old rules of the company? When we followed Chairman Pei to conquer the empire, he was still wearing open-crotch pants. How dare he point fingers at me? No matter what, he has to give us an explanation today. That's right. Does he really think that he's the only one in the Pei family? 2/3 of the senior members in the conference room were scolding Pei Yuqing. Only a few of them were sitting quietly. Just as they were making a racket, the door was suddenly pushed open. Pei Yuqing had changed into a light gray suit and strode in unhurriedly. He sat down at the head of the table. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Chung Mo sat on Pei Yuqing's left. The moment Pei Yuqing arrived, all the senior members reacted as though a bomb had been ignited. President Pei, you're really arrogant. You came so late after we invited you. A plump director, who looked to be in his 50s and 60s, with a beer belly, said coldly. The director with white hair, who sat on Pei Yuqing's right, replied calmly, President Pei, I'm sure you know why we invited you here today. All these years, we've worked with your father to build the company. Even if we haven't contributed much, we've put in a lot of hard work. Previously, you insisted on expanding the company and reducing the investment in the original projects. We didn't say anything because you were doing this for the sake of the company's development. But now you promoted us one by one and even directly stopped the projects in our hands. For this, shouldn't you give us an explanation? As soon as this director's words came out, it was immediately echoed by the other directors in the same camp. Old Feng is right. Pei Yuqing, even if you're the president of JM Corporation, you have no right to make decisions on your own. Pei Yuqing supported his forehead with one hand as he listened to the board members' protests and questions. His other hand tapped on the table rhythmically, as usual. He looked calm and collected as he listened to them patiently. At that moment, one of the directors who had been silent all this while could not help but stand up and say, "Director Qian, Old Feng, please calm down." Old Feng just mentioned the plans to expand the company's territory. Everyone knows that Boss Pei has a unique vision. As long as he has invested in new projects in the past 2 years, he has never made a loss. As for the position adjustment, it was just a normal personnel transfer according to the needs of the company's development. If you really want the company's development, you shouldn't only think about your own interests. The director who spoke was wearing a dark blue suit. His hair was neatly combed, and he had a rigid face. He looked like he was in his 40s, and he glanced at the troublemaking directors with disdain. Chapter 207. Ren Hongji's face flushed red. "You, Director Qian, do you really want me to put it in such an ugly way? All of you have used your status and position to suck the company dry. You know very well that if this goes on, no matter how big the company is, it won't be able to withstand your actions." The moment Ren Hongji said that, Director Qian and Old Feng flew into a rage. They slammed the table and started scolding Ren Hongji. "Ren Hongji, you need evidence to back up your words. We have worked hard for the company all these years. How can you slander us? This is too much. President Pei, you have to give us an explanation." "That's right. Otherwise, don't blame us for alerting Chairman Pei. Chairman Pei has told you time and again not to touch our positions. I want to see if you will still be able to keep your position if Chairman Pei finds out about what you have done." These directors and senior executives relied on their seniority and the chairman's support, so they were naturally unscrupulous and continued to clamor. Recently, there had been rumors that Pei Yuqing had a serious illness, so they couldn't help but stir up trouble. Pei Yuqing also had a group of confidants in the company, but most of them were newbies. A few of them dared to stand up, but they didn't dare to argue with these people. Only Ren Hongji kept arguing with them. Cheng Mo, who was Pei Yuqing's most trusted confidant, didn't say a word. He merely watched these people expressionlessly, his eyes filled with sympathy and pity. Pei Yuqing had officially taken over the company 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Pei Yuqing's temperament had changed drastically. He had suddenly become gentle, and everyone's evaluation of him was that he was polite and gentle. No one could imagine what Pei Yuqing had been like 2 years ago. If they had known, they wouldn't have dug their own graves today. Pei Yuqing's fingers, which were tapping on the table, stopped. He raised his head and scanned the crowd slowly. Then, he said airily, "It seems like everyone has a strong opinion of me. However, there's no need to alarm Father about this." Director Qian's chubby face twitched as he sneered. "Humph, are you afraid now? Let me tell you, it's too late. We've already reported this to Chairman Pei. We're going to Country M to explain to him what you've been doing." Pei Yuqing's expression remained calm and gentle. "Everyone, please calm down. I have a solution that will satisfy everyone." The directors looked smug when they heard Pei Yuqing. As expected, this little brat still wanted to compromise. "You should have said so earlier." "Wait, don't make it sound so nice. Why don't you tell me what the plan is? It's useless if you can't satisfy us." Pei Yuqing grinned as a bone-chilling, maniacal expression appeared in his eyes. Yes, Cheng Mo's expression changed as he studied Pei Yuqing. He was back, the man who had once made the world feel despair. Back then, Pei Yuqing had wanted to make the entire world feel pain. Then, it had danced in his palm. The higher-ups present would never have imagined how crazy Pei Yuqing had been in the past. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was a synonym for terror. Chapter 208. Cheng Mo scanned the crowd coldly. There was only one word in his mind: Stupid. They had no idea how crazy and dark this man's heart was. In the past few years, his disguise had been flawless. However, there would come a day when the disguise would be removed. This man possessed abilities that ordinary people couldn't imagine. However, the darkness and madness in his heart allowed him to bring a destructive disaster to this world. Chung Emo looked at the man beside him. His originally calm eyes were now filled with awe. "Come in." Pei Yuching spoke softly. The door of the meeting room was pushed open and 3 young men strode in. The man in the lead wore a warm smile on his face. He was wearing a custom-made suit with a white tulip in his chest pocket. He looked noble and elegant. Behind him was a woman in a black suit. She looked cold and aloof, like a block of ice, and no one dared to approach her. The last person looked young, like a teenager. His face was clean, but he had a head of slightly curly white hair. He had a lollipop in his mouth, looking innocent and naive. Chung Mo's eyes were no longer calm when he saw the 3 of them. Although he was Pei Yuching's most trusted and closest confidant, he wasn't the most powerful person around him. He could stay by Pei Yuching's side because he was the most gentle and good-tempered. However, these 3 people, the 3 of them stood by Pei Yuching's side. The young man with the white tulip in his pocket strode over to Pei Yuching and bowed respectfully. The smile on his face didn't disappear. Seeing 3 strangers suddenly walk in, the troublemaking directors were instantly displeased. Director Qian looked stern.
Who are they?
Where do they think this is? They can come and go as they please. Old Feng snapped impatiently. President Pei, don't keep us in suspense. Hurry up and tell us what solution you have that will satisfy everyone.
Ha.
The young man with the white tulip in his pocket chuckled softly and replied unhurriedly, "What is the solution that will satisfy everyone? Don't you know the answer to such a simple question?" The young man paused for a moment, then continued with a smile, "As long as the people who are dissatisfied with you disappear, then the plan will naturally be satisfactory to everyone." The man had been smiling the whole time, but that smile made people shudder. They didn't know what was going on. They were just 3 young people, but the moment they came in, the entire conference room seemed to fall into a great pressure. Especially this man's words. It inexplicably made one's hair stand on end. Director Qian slammed the table when he heard the threat.
Pei Yuching.
What do you mean? How dare you threaten me? Before Director Qian could finish speaking, a white tulip pierced through the air and pierced through the back of his plump hand, nailing him to the table.
Ah!
In an instant, Director Qian let out a roar like a pig being slaughtered. Almost everyone was stunned as they stared at Director Qian's bleeding hand. How dare he hurt an important director of the company in public? And what's with this man? No one could see how he did it. How could someone use a flower to pierce through the back of someone's hand? Chapter 209. Pei Yuching seemed displeased when he heard Director Qian's wails. His cold eyes darted to the young man who had hurt him. Did I allow you to hit him? Pei Yuching's cold, aloof eyes turned icy at once. The young man coughed softly and swallowed his saliva before he said meekly, "My hand slipped." The young man gloated at Pei Yuching's scolding. "You deserve it. Don't you know that boss hates violence?" The young man muttered softly, Yes. Boss hates violence.
Boss is the most gentle one.
I'm just not used to it." The curly-haired young man tossed the lollipop in his mouth and straightened his clothes. He took a stack of documents from the woman's hands and walked over to the directors. Then he distributed them politely. As he distributed the documents, he said, "I was disrespectful earlier. Please forgive me. These documents are the plans that we have carefully prepared for all of you. I believe that you will be satisfied." Then, each of the troublemaking directors was given a document. At first, they had been waiting arrogantly to see what Pei Yuching had prepared that would satisfy them. In the end, when they saw the contents of the proposal, their expressions all changed. Director Qian ignored the pain in his palm and hurriedly covered the documents with both hands. The others reacted similarly, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. Any one of the things in these documents would be enough to ruin their reputations and cause them to die without a burial ground, however. These documents had been kept a secret. How had Pei Yuqing? How had he found out? Besides, the three people who had appeared out of nowhere didn't look like ordinary people. As though this was the first time they had met Pei Yuqing, their faces were filled with bewilderment and fear. Director Qian's face was as red as a pig's liver. He leaped to his feet angrily and yelled, "Pei Yuqing! What do you mean by this? How dare you play dirty with us? You immature, yellow-haired boy. Who do you think you are? How dare you mess with me? I'll call Chairman Pei right now and show him what you've done. Do you think that you can shut me up with these things? Do you think? Pei Yuqing didn't allow anyone to stop Director Qian from yelling. He leaned back in his chair and lowered his eyes to light a cigarette. A second later, the man raised his head slowly through the thin layer of smoke. His eyes, which were as dark as the night, pierced through the lenses and the smoke and landed on Director Qian's face. In an instant, Director Qian was like a duck whose throat had been slit. All he wanted to say was to whimper in fear. The man on the main seat still had a cultured and refined appearance, but just one look from him was enough to freeze one's soul. The huge conference room was as silent as a graveyard. Even Cheng Mo and the other three held their breaths, not daring to look into the man's eyes. Even they wouldn't be able to withstand this level of suppression, let alone ordinary people. Director Qian was sweating profusely. His plump body was shaking uncontrollably, and yellow urine was dripping from his chair, just when everyone was about to be frightened by this terrible atmosphere, and their hearts almost stopped beating. A sudden ringtone of a cell phone rang. Pei Yuqing's phone was ringing. Pei Yuqing exhaled a puff of smoke. He didn't look at his phone as he answered the call. Then, a girl's voice was heard. Mr. Pei. As soon as the girl's voice rang, the oppressive aura in the conference room vanished without a trace. It was as though everything had been an illusion. Pei Yuqing picked up his phone, his face expressionless. However, the atmosphere had changed abruptly. Pei Yuqing asked, "What's the matter?" "Air. A little. Can we meet tomorrow night?" asked the girl.
Pei Yuqing replied, "Okay."
Chapter 210. Just when everyone was about to be frightened by this terrible atmosphere and their hearts almost stopped beating, a sudden ringtone of a cell phone rang. Pei Yuqing's phone was ringing. Pei Yuqing exhaled a puff of smoke. He didn't look at his phone as he answered the call. Then, a girl's voice was heard. Mr. Pei. As soon as the girl's voice rang out, the oppressive feeling in the meeting room vanished without a trace. It was as though everything had been an illusion. Pei Yuqing picked up his phone, looking expressionless. However, the atmosphere had changed abruptly. Pei Yuqing asked, "What's the matter?" "Air. A little. Can we meet tomorrow night?" asked the girl. Pei Yuqing replied, "Okay." Pei Yuqing hung up and swept his eyes across everyone. From today onward, Ren Hongji will take over as the finance director of JM Corporation. He will be in charge of the Asia division of JM Corporation. Does anyone have any objections? Under normal circumstances, the senior executives would have started cursing and swearing at such a serious announcement. However, the entire meeting room was silent now. No one dared to object. Since everyone is in agreement, the meeting is adjourned. Pei Yuqing stood up and left. He left the rest of the meeting to Cheng Mo. The young woman's eyes were glued to Pei Yuqing as she trailed behind him respectfully. The young man and the boy followed behind her. The sound of footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. The woman trailed behind Pei Yuqing, looking as though she wanted to say something. In the end, she couldn't help but ask, "Brother Yu, actually, it's easy to make these people listen to you. These people bully the weak and are afraid of the strong. They won't give up until they see the coffin. If we were to be ruthless, I don't think they would dare to disobey us. Why did you make it so troublesome? You even made us spend so much time investigating this matter." Pei Yuqing paused slightly when he heard the woman's question. He turned around slightly and glanced at the woman coldly. The woman felt a chill down her spine when she met the man's cold gaze. She lowered her head and said, "I crossed the line." Pei Yuqing turned around and continued walking. After a few seconds, The man's nonchalant voice echoed in the empty corridor. She doesn't like it. The woman thought that she was hallucinating. After a long time, she realized that Pei Yuqing had answered her question. She did not like it in an instant. The woman's face was as pale as paper. She stood there in a daze, staring at the man's cold back. At this moment, the young man beside her looked at the woman and said faintly, "Sigh, Jilan, why do you have to ask? Don't you know who boss has been cultivating for the past 2 years?" The young man inserted the white tulip back into his chest pocket, but the white petals were stained with blood. Suddenly, a message popped up on the man's phone. List of Lin Yan's rumored boyfriends. The man looked at the gossip with a faint smile and said, "But don't worry. If this continues, I don't think the boss will be able to pretend for much longer. You know what? I heard from little Momo that boss flew into a rage tonight. All the cups and tables were broken. I don't know what triggered him." Chapter 211. Guess which of big sister-in-law's rumored boyfriends offended boss? Could it be Wei Shufeng, Shin Chaomu, or Tang Jia? The young man sucked on a lollipop as he glanced sideways at him. Big sister-in-law's rumored boyfriends are all over the entertainment industry. How would I know who it is? Fortunately, boss didn't care about her for the past 2 years. Otherwise, the world would have been destroyed. If boss had continued to ignore her like he did 2 years ago and completely left her side, it would have been fine. But now that they're together again, these things will definitely not be able to be hidden anymore. How could she possibly endure it? It's already a miracle that she only broke a cup and a desk until now. The man stroked his chin, looking puzzled. Didn't boss decide to set her free? Why did he suddenly change his mind? The young man shrugged. Who knows? Maybe he still can't forget her? I thought that it was unrealistic for boss to let her go. The woman in black interjected coldly, looking disgusted. That woman must have done something. Otherwise, why would brother you be with her? The young man blinked and hesitated. Sister Lon, you can't say that. That woman doesn't remember anything. She doesn't even know who boss is. Given her current status, she wouldn't have a chance to get close to boss. What could she have done? The young man chuckled softly. Boss must have dug a hole for her. She doesn't remember anything now. Given boss's intelligence, it would be easy for him to lie to her. The young man rolled his eyes at him.
What are you talking about?
Given boss's looks, why would he need to lie to her? The woman glanced at them darkly. Are the two of you still speaking up for that woman? Xinglan, have you forgotten how your hand was crippled?
And you, Qin Huan.
Who was the one who was bedridden for 3 months? The young man twisted his left wrist, which produced a series of metallic cracking sounds. His face was filled with lingering fear as he sighed and said, "Sigh, you can't blame boss for this. It's my fault for not being careful. I knew that boss couldn't control himself and was especially paranoid, yet I still dared to approach that woman within 3 steps and speak more than 10 words to her. Wasn't I just courting death?" The young man muttered under his breath. "I'm the one who suffered. She suddenly fainted. I couldn't just let her fall to the ground without supporting her, right? If he helped her up, he would get beaten up. If he didn't help her up, he would still get beaten up. It's so hard for me." The man seemed to have thought of something as he removed the white tulip from his pocket and twirled it between his fingers. "Oh, actually, I admire Lin Yan's ex-boyfriend the most. What's his name again? Oh yeah, Han Yishuan. That man with the surname Han was really lucky. Right after Big Brother released sister-in-law, she started dating Han Yishuan. Although Big Brother didn't know about it for 2 years, he should know about it now. After being cuckolded, that man was still alive and well. Boss's temper has been really good these past 2 years. He's really like a jade and a peerless young master. Sometimes I even wonder if he's back to normal." The young man sucked on the lollipop as he stared at Pei Yuqing's back. He shuddered involuntarily. To be honest, I think that boss has been even scarier these past 2 years. Chapter 212. All the test subjects below level B would be destroyed. Tonight's news had been a huge blow to Lin Yan. Flash dance, she had always harbored hope that her brother was still alive somewhere in this world. Regardless of whether he was alive or not, As long as he was alive, she would definitely find him. However, this news had shattered all her hopes. Lin Yan stood on the balcony in a daze as the cold wind blew against her face. While he was lost in thought, his phone suddenly rang. The caller ID showed that it was an unfamiliar number. Lin Yan answered the call. "Hello? Who is it?" "Big sister-in-law, it's me." The gentle voice on the other end of the line startled Lin Yan. She snapped back to her senses after some time. "Mr. Pei? Sorry to disturb you so late at night. Did I disturb your rest?" Pei Nanxiu sounded exhausted. "No, I haven't slept yet. What's the matter?" asked Lin Yan hastily. Pei Nanxiu replied, "There is something that I need your help with." Lin Yan asked, "Help? What could she do to help Pei Nanxiu?" "Yes." Pei Nanxiu fell silent for a moment. He hesitated before he said, "Can you call my big brother now?"
Huh?
Lin Yan was puzzled. "Call Mr. Pei?"
Pei Nanxiu replied, "Yeah."
"Flash dance?" Lin Yan asked, "But why do I have to call him all of a sudden? What should I say?" Pei Nanxiu replied, "As long as you call him now, you can say anything you want. You can also arrange a meeting with him tomorrow night." Lin Yan was confused by Pei Nanxiu's request. Why did he want her to call Pei Yuqing all of a sudden? She was planning to break up with him, so it would be better for her to contact him as little as possible. On the other end of the line, Pei Nanxiu pleaded sincerely, "Please, can you do it?" How could she reject her idol's request? Lin Yan replied, "Okay, I'll call him later. Thank you." Pei Nanxiu heaved a sigh of relief. Even though she had no idea why Pei Nanxiu would make such a request, he sounded so earnest and anxious. It had to be something urgent. Hence, Lin Yan followed Pei Nanxiu's instructions and called Pei Yuqing immediately. "Hello, Mr. Pei." The call was quickly connected, and the man's hoarse voice came from the other end. "What's the matter?" Lin Yan didn't know if she was hallucinating, but that familiar voice sent a chill down her spine. Lin Yan didn't think too much about it. Instead, she asked, "Can we meet tomorrow night?" Pei Yuqing replied, "All right." Pei Yuqing's tone was as gentle and polite as ever, as though she had been hallucinating. After that, Lin Yan hung up. Then, she texted Pei Nanxiu. "Mr. Pei, I've called and arranged to meet Mr. Pei tomorrow night." "Great. Thank you very much." "You're welcome." After sending the message, Lin Yan leaned against the railing and sighed helplessly. Sigh, it's easy to make a phone call, but what about the one-on-one meeting tomorrow night? What will she say then? She couldn't say anything to Pei Nanxiu. After all, Pei Nanxiu believed that they were a couple, so it was normal for lovers to call each other to meet at night. Chapter 213. The next day, at the filming location, Lin Yan wasn't feeling too well. She had even stopped playing her game. After putting on her makeup, she sat on the chair in a daze. Duo stood beside her and peeped at her. Finally, she coughed softly and said, "Don't be too bothered by the haters online. In the entertainment industry, it's better to have people talking about you than to be ignored. Besides, your acting skills are pretty good. It's just that your previous roles were terrible. Listen to Sister Ling and focus on acting. You will get better." Lin Yan raised her eyes slightly and glanced at Duo in surprise. She looked overwhelmed. "Baby Duo, are you consoling me?" Duo's face stiffened. "Who is consoling you?" "I'm just worried that you might affect Sister Ling's reputation. I heard that Han Yishuan is joining the filming crew today. If you are affected, you won't be able to continue filming today." Lin Yan grinned at the girl, who was lying to her. "He won't be able to work with me. Don't worry. Today's scenes will be simple." Wei Shufeng had applied for leave, so some of her scenes had been moved to the front. Perhaps it was because he had suffered a huge blow, but he had been posting sad and sorrowful posts on Weibo every day. Every time he posted a post, she would be scolded. Lin Yan perked up and finished her scenes for the day. After changing her clothes and removing her makeup, she took her canvas bag with the words, "Suddenly Rich," printed on it, and left the set. "Sister Yan, are you going home later?" "I'm meeting a friend. I'll take the subway. You can go first." Sister Yen, when your performance improves, I'll ask Sister Ling to get you a car. Otherwise, it will be inconvenient for you to take the subway every day. However, I don't know how long it will take for your performance to improve. Lin Yen and Duo were chatting as they walked out. Suddenly, they bumped into someone at the corner of the corridor. She had bumped into Pei Nanchu previously, but this time, she had bumped into Han Yishuan. Duoduo's eyes widened when she saw Han Yishuan and his assistant. She instinctively tugged at Lin Yan's clothes. The four of them seemed to be taken aback when they bumped into each other. Han Yishuan raised his head and frowned when he saw Lin Yan. No one spoke for a moment. Lin Yan's eyes lingered on Han Yishuan's face for a split second. She didn't even linger for half a second before she brushed past him and strode ahead. Duo heaved a sigh of relief and hurried after Lin Yan. They had barely taken a few steps when a man's voice rang behind them.
Lin Yan, he said.
Duoduo's scalp went numb when she heard Han Yishuan. What was going on? Why was he the one who initiated the conversation every time? Why did he have to take the initiative to talk to Lin Yan every time? The development of the plot did not match up with the rumors at all. Duo swallowed her saliva and glanced cautiously at Lin Yan. The latter completely ignored Han Yishuan and continued walking forward as if he hadn't heard anything. Han Yishuan blocked Lin Yan's path with a cold expression. Lin Yan. Lin Yan glanced at her phone in annoyance. Sorry, Mr. Han. I have an appointment tonight. Han Yishuan was relentless. I'll only say a few words. Han Yishuan's perfume made Lin Yan feel even worse. Do I have to listen to you? Chapter 214. Han Yishuan, who wasn't used to Lin Yan's attitude, looked even grimmer. Lin Yan, if Shuya hadn't pleaded for you, do you think you would still be filming here? I'm warning you one last time. Shuya isn't like you. She's innocent and kind. She doesn't know anything, so I won't allow anyone to hurt her. If I find out that you've done anything to hurt Shuya, I will make sure that you never appear before her again. That's all I have to say.
You're on your own now.
After Han Yishuan finished his threatening speech, he turned around and strode away. Duo stood quietly, not daring to breathe. She clutched her chest as Han Yishuan walked away. You scared me. Duo glanced at Lin Yan helplessly. Sister Yen, it's fine if you want to be famous. Why would you dare to provoke Han Yishuan? Don't you know that the Han family is powerful in the capital city? What Han Yishuan said just now wasn't just to scare you. Just one word from him, and you'll disappear from this circle. Lin Yan blinked.
Oh.
Duo was displeased with her perfunctory attitude. Oh. Don't you have anything else to say? What do I have to say? Lin Yan glanced at her and replied expressionlessly. Did you say that my ex-boyfriend was impressive? So what? My current boyfriend is even more impressive. Duo was exasperated and speechless. Would it kill you to stop bragging? You even bragged twice in one sentence. Han Yishuan is your ex-boyfriend? Do you have an even more impressive boyfriend? Why don't you go to heaven? Lin Yan pursed her lips. Why didn't anyone believe her nowadays? Because of Han Yishuan's delay, she was almost late. Hence, she gritted her teeth and hailed a cab to get to the meeting place. By the time she arrived, she was a few minutes late. Pei Yuqing had already arrived. Pei Yuqing had booked the meeting place. There was a secluded garden behind the restaurant that was secluded from the outside world. White roses, stained with night dew, had climbed all over the flower racks. The night was blurry, and stars shone through the night sky. Pei Yuqing sat on a rattan chair under the flower racks with a white porcelain teacup in his hand. Lin Yan, who had disrupted her breakup plans, had initially been reluctant to meet him. However, as she stared at him, who was dressed in a retro suit and sitting on a pergola, she felt as though he had walked out of a medieval European oil painting. All she could think about was how peaceful and seductive the night was. Lin Yan snapped back to her senses after some time. Sorry, Mr. Pei. I'm late. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Pei Yuqing turned around when he heard her. Don't worry. I just arrived. After that, he gracefully poured her a cup of flower tea. Lin Yan hurriedly reached for the teacup. Thank you. Lin Yan sat there, not knowing what to say. All she could do was drink water to hide her awkwardness. Pei Yuqing seemed to be in a good mood. His beautiful face looked even more alluring tonight. Miss Lin, why did you ask to meet me? Lin Yan wore a bitter expression on her face. She had no idea why she had asked him out. Pei Nanchu had asked her to make a call, and she had asked him to make an appointment. Lin Yan deliberated over her words. Nothing. Nothing. What could possibly happen to me? I'm really sorry for asking you out. Did I disturb your work? Actually, it's nothing. I just wanted to ask you out for a meal and a chat. Pei Yuqing sipped his tea and grinned at the girl. Did you miss me? Chapter 215. Uft. Lin Yan was caught off guard and spat out a mouthful of water. Then, she felt a gentle caress on her back. Are you okay? I'm fine. Lin Yan blushed and instinctively shrank back. Fortunately, Pei Yuqing retreated quickly. Lin Yan finally caught her breath. Anyway, I'm glad I didn't disturb you, Pei Yuqing replied. I'm not busy. Lin Yan was puzzled.
Huh.
But I saw in the financial news that JM Corporation is undergoing a major renovation. I thought you would be busy. Pei Yuqing's intuition was rather sharp. When he detected Lin Yan's tone, he paused for a moment. Miss Lin, you seem disappointed? Lin Yan, who was startled, waved her hands frantically. Of course not. Of course I'm happy that you're not busy. Then, she continued to gulp down water. When she felt guilty, she couldn't help but keep drinking. It was too difficult to lie to Pei Yuqing, as his eyes seemed to be able to see through one's heart. Fortunately, Pei Yuqing didn't continue the topic. He picked up the menu and asked, What do you want to eat? I'm fine with anything. You can order, Lin Yan replied absent-mindedly. Okay. Pei Yuqing finished ordering quickly. Lin Yan lowered her head and continued to drink her water. This is the first time Miss Lin has asked me out, Pei Yuqing said. Actually, she hadn't asked him out. Today was also the day he was forced to close as they chatted. Lin Yan's phone rang. There was a new WeChat message. Lin Yan glanced at it and saw that it was from Duo. She was worried that Duo was looking for her regarding work, so she clicked on the message. Duo had sent a news link and a picture. Lin Yan didn't think much of it. She clicked on the picture and saw her and Han Yishuan's faces. Not long ago, someone had secretly taken a picture of her and Han Yishuan in the corridor and posted it online. The worst part was that there had been 2 assistants present at the time. However, the person who had posted the picture had deliberately edited them out, leaving only Lin Yan and Han Yishuan in the picture. Therefore, the scene of the 2 of them standing face to face was ambiguous, no matter how one looked at it. In the eyes of an outsider, it could be interpreted in 10,000 ways. What was worse was that Lin Yan had clicked on it right in front of him. Pei Yuqing's eyes darted to the photo and the date on it. The photo had been taken shortly before Lin Yan's date with him. Before going on a date with her boyfriend, she secretly met up with her ex-boyfriend. Even Lin Yan felt that she couldn't explain herself. Lin Yan switched off the screen hastily and explained, I bumped into Han Yishuan in the corridor after work. Both our assistants were there, but the person who posted the photo took it. Pei Yuqing seemed to be deep in thought as he remained silent. Amidst the silence, Lin Yan felt as though a terrifying danger was approaching. However, very quickly, that aura seemed to be restrained, as if it was just an illusion. After some time, Pei Yuqing lit a cigarette and broke the silence. Why do you like Han Yishuan? Chapter 216. Pei Yuqing's expression resembled that of a wife questioning her husband about his mistress. Lin Yan felt inexplicably guilty. She had explained that she had dated Han Yishuan before she had met Pei Yuqing. Lin Yan felt a familiar sense of fear that was etched into her bones. What was going on? The man in front of her was so gentle and gentle. No matter how she looked at it, he was a perfect boyfriend. Why did she always feel so repulsed by him? Actually, this was one of the reasons why she had wanted to break up with him. Today's news had reminded her that she had merely bumped into Han Yishuan by accident. Someone would take a photo and post it online. It would be too dangerous for her to continue dating Pei Yuqing. If this were to be exposed, it would be no laughing matter. It had been such a long time, and her body had always been normal. There had been no other abnormalities, so there should be no problem. Lin Yan's thoughts were running wild as she tried to break up with Pei Yuqing. She didn't notice that the white porcelain teacup that Pei Yuqing had placed on the table had cracks all over it. As Lin Yan studied the man before her, she suddenly felt that she had been too selfish. She had pushed the blame onto her so-called second personality and lied to Pei Yuqing time and time again. Pei Yuqing was such a gentle and reasonable man. She should have just explained everything to him. Why was she so afraid of being overcautious? This time, Lin Yan didn't try to brush him off. She recalled her memories and said, liking someone is something that doesn't make sense. Actually, there is no special reason for liking someone. I don't remember many things that happened in the past. I only remember that Han Yishuan told me that he liked my carefree look. Because of this, I got together with him. Pei Yuqing's eyes darkened when he heard Lin Yan. It seems like it's easy for Miss Lin to forget someone and fall in love with someone. Lin Yan inhaled deeply and glanced at Pei Yuqing. Mr. Pei, there is something that I want to be honest with you. In fact, I've explained it to you before, but you didn't seem to believe me. There really is another consciousness in my body that doesn't belong to me. At least this consciousness isn't my original intention. Lin Yan collected her thoughts and added, the first time, I was lying on your bed. That wasn't me. The second time, I appeared in your ward. That wasn't me either. When I barged into your house and accidentally fell on you, it wasn't me either. At that time, my body was completely controlled by another consciousness, so I had no idea what was happening. I knew you wouldn't believe such an explanation, so I had no choice but to lie like that. This time, Pei Yuqing didn't tease her. He wasn't surprised either. Instead, he was so calm that Lin Yan felt uneasy. What lie? Asked Pei Yuqing. Lin Yan observed Pei Yuqing's expression and realized that he had been rather calm the entire time. As expected, it was just her imagination before, right? If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have hesitated for so long before asking. She even spent so much time in hell every day. Chapter 217. Lin Yan heaved a sigh of relief and added, I lied when I said that I loved you so much that I followed you time and time again. Actually, it wasn't like that. I didn't know you from the beginning. It was the first time I saw you on your bed. Pei Yuqing's expression was as calm as the calm sea as he gazed at the girl before him. Why did you agree to be with me? Lin Yan pulled a long face. To save my life. I disrespected you time and time again. No matter how good-tempered you were, you wouldn't have let me off. Besides, I was afraid that the consciousness would control my body and continue to disrespect you. If I had the identity of your girlfriend, it wouldn't have been a problem. That's why I made the best of it. I'm really sorry. It was my fault. Pei Yuqing tapped his fingers rhythmically on the table. I was infatuated with you and couldn't stop thinking about you day and night. Lin Yan felt a little ashamed when she heard what he had said in the past. I was afraid that you would be angry, so I made it up. Pei Yuqing replied. Low blood sugar. Lin Yan swallowed her saliva. I looked for you because I wanted to help second young Master Pei. Pei Yuqing asked, what about tonight? Lin Yan replied, tonight. Actually, Mr. Pei called me all of a sudden yesterday. He asked me to call you. He wants to meet you tonight. I don't know why. Pei Yuqing was speechless. Only the sound of the night breeze could be heard. The night sky was as dark as ink. After a very, very long time, Lin Yan finally heard Pei Yuqing say, So? Lin Yan scratched her head and blurted out, So, why don't we break up? That's not right. Actually, we don't have to break up. It was a misunderstanding from the beginning. It was really a misunderstanding. Besides, Mr. Pei, you accepted me because you were curious, right? You said that you didn't want to get married. Pei Yuqing's fingers stopped tapping on the table, and the room fell silent. Miss Lin, you seem to have misunderstood me. Lin Yan asked, Misunderstood? Pei Yuqing replied gently and politely. I said that we can choose not to get married, but I didn't say that we can break up. Lin Yan was speechless. Huh? Lin Yan fell silent when she heard that. At the same time, she could sense that something wasn't right with Pei Yuqing. The cigarette between Pei Yuqing's fingers had reached its end. He stubbed it out and stroked the girl's cheek with his fingers. Then he sighed and said, "Miss Lin, I regret it." Even though he had addressed her as Miss Lin, it was as though a bolt of lightning had exploded in Lin Yan's head, causing her immense pain. Instinctively, Lin Yan slapped his hand away with a look of disgust on her face. When she snapped back to her senses, she finally realized what she had done. ****. What was wrong with her? Mr. Pei, I'm sorry. Pei Yuqing studied the back of his hand, which had turned red from the slap, and muttered hoarsely, "I'm sorry. I really can't accept it." "What?" Lin Yan frowned. Before Lin Yan could snap back to her senses, the man's gaze was like a cage engulfing her. "I can't accept this. You're not mine. Miss Lin, I refuse to break up with you." Chapter 218. Miss Lin, from tomorrow onwards, I hope that you can stop filming and retire from the entertainment industry. Of course, if you like your current job, you can sign with Summit Entertainment. I will arrange a new manager for you and arrange a new place for you to stay. Your schedule and work arrangements, whether it's the things you do or the people you meet, will be directly managed by me. Lin Yan frowned as she listened. She couldn't understand what Pei Yuqing meant. Mr. Pei, why? Why would she want to quit the entertainment industry? Why would she want to go to Summit Entertainment? Pei Yuqing drummed his fingers on the table as his gold-rimmed glasses glinted coldly. Because it's good for both of us. Lin Yan finally understood what Pei Yuqing meant. Did he want to treat her like a canary in a cage? Lin Yan's expression hardened as she said, "Mr. Pei, I think you've misunderstood something. We have broken up. Besides, even if we hadn't, you have no right to decide my life." "So, your answer?" Pei Yuqing studied the girl expressionlessly. "I refuse," Lin Yan replied without hesitation. Pei Yuqing fell silent for a moment. Then he pushed the frame of his glasses up gently. "Miss Lin, you will agree. I will wait for you at Cloud Manor tomorrow morning." Pei Yuqing. Before Lin Yan could explain herself, he had already turned around and left the garden. Lin Yan's expression darkened. Why did Pei Yuqing look like a different person all of a sudden? Or was this the original him? She should have expected this. When there was light, there would be darkness. How could there be such a perfect person in this world? Pei Yuqing was too perfect. He was so perfect that it seemed unreal. All this time, she had only seen the bright side of Pei Yuqing. Actually, Pei Yutong had reminded her time and time again, but she had never taken it to heart. Until today, Lin Yan had made up her mind. As long as she didn't agree to his demands, she would be fine. However, she had a bad feeling about this. In a private room of a nightclub in the capital city, Qin Huan was leaning on the stairs, playing with a white tulip in his hand. Xing Chun was lying on the sofa with a lollipop in his mouth. Jilan was dressed in black and stood at the door with her arms crossed. She did not look too good. Pei Nanxiu and Pei Yutong were there as well. Pei Nanxiu looked around. "Where's Assistant Cheng?" "I went to change Brother Yu's desk." Qin Huan glanced at Pei Nanxiu and smiled. "I was wondering why boss suddenly stopped his outbursts last night. It turns out that second young master found someone to put out the fire." Pei Nanxiu fell silent for a moment. "So, Miss Lin is the person from 2 years ago? Why doesn't she seem to know Big Brother at all?" Qin Huan shrugged and replied, "She forgot everything related to Big Brother, including the three of us. We weren't overseas back then, so there were many things that we didn't know." "What happened between Miss Lin and my brother?" Pei Nanxiu asked. Qin Huan deliberated over his words before he said, "How should I put this? Lin Yan and Brother Yu aren't just lovers. Lin Yan is Brother Yu's stabilizer." Chapter 219. A stabilizer? Pei Nanxiu looked surprised. When Big Brother's body reached its limit and he almost exploded, "You said that you found a stabilizer. You didn't develop a special drug, but Qin Huan nodded. That's right. Lin Yan is Brother Yu's stabilizer. How is that possible? Pei Nanxiu muttered to himself in a daze. Is there something special about Miss Lin? Qin Huan shrugged. I don't know. We checked Lin Yan's body, and she looks just like a normal person. However, whenever she is by Brother Yu's side, he will stabilize. I don't think it has anything to do with her physique. Anyway, there is no other stabilizer that is stronger than her. Pei Yutong stood by the side and listened intently. He couldn't help but ask, what happened after that? Big Brother didn't mention Sister Yen at all after he came back. He didn't even allow us to talk about her. Qin Huan sighed heavily. Things were complicated back then. At first, Brother Yu ordered us not to mention Lin Yan in front of anyone. However, it seems like we don't need to anymore. Who would have thought that Brother Yu would get back together with her? He even introduced her to all of you, so it's not a big deal to tell you. Xing Chen, who was lying on the couch, munched on his lollipop as he quipped, if it was really a drug, it wouldn't have been a problem. However, Lin Yan is a human after all. You know how extreme Brother Yu is, but Lin Yan is even more extreme than him. She is like gunpowder that will explode at the slightest provocation. She hates being restrained, but Brother Yu can't leave her side. I'm sure you can guess the outcome of their relationship, Qin Huan chimed in. All of you think that Brother Yu is scary, but that woman is even scarier. She wants freedom even more than her life. She would rather die than turn back. In the end, she forced Brother Yu to compromise. Not only did Brother Yu let her go, but he has also become a different person. He has cultivated and cultivated himself. He hasn't even lost his temper once. He is really amazing. Pei Yutong was flabbergasted. No wonder. I was wondering why Big Brother's temper had become so good these past 2 years. Why would he suddenly fall in love with an unknown artist? I didn't know that Big Brother and Sister Yen had known each other for a long time. Pei Nanxiu took a long time to snap out of his daze. So Big Brother intends to start afresh with Miss Lin? Qin Huan shrugged. How can we guess Brother Yu's thoughts? I think so. Pei Yutong pressed his palms together and said sincerely, fortunately, Sister Yen has forgotten everything. Big Brother is so gentle now. It's entirely possible for us to start afresh. May my eldest brother and sister-in-law live happily ever after, grow old together, and have children soon. Xing Chen muttered, don't be too optimistic. I keep feeling like Boss's current state is very dangerous. It'd be fine if he really didn't see her for the past 2 years, but once he sees her and finds out about what happened to her in the past 2 years, and finds out about her ex-boyfriends and scandals, how could he hold back? His rage level had probably reached a critical point long ago. It's just that it's well hidden. Qin Huan rolled his eyes at the young man. Can you shut your mouth? As they spoke, Qin Huan, Xing Chen, and Jilan's expressions changed abruptly. They sprang to their feet in unison, looking wary as though they were facing a formidable enemy. Chapter 220. What was going on? Even Pei Yutong and Pei Nanxiu, who sensed that something was amiss, instinctively turned to look at the door. Soon after, they saw a figure with an imposing aura slowly walking in from the darkness. The man was wearing a retro aesthetic suit, but at this moment, his tidy tie had been loosely pulled off his neck, and 3 buttons on his shirt had been undone. His originally black and tidy hair was a little messy. Big Boss, Brother Yu, Big Brother, everyone, including Pei Nanxiu and Pei Yutong, realized that something was wrong with Pei Yuqing's behavior. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. For a moment, no one dared to move, much less approach. In the end, Pei Nanxiu stepped forward and approached Pei Yuqing cautiously. Pei Nanxiu knew that Pei Yuqing didn't drink, so he walked to the bar counter and poured him a glass of lemon water. He tried his best to speak in a relaxed tone. Big Brother, why are you here? Pei Yuqing didn't speak. Instead, he scanned Pei Nanxiu's face with his dark eyes. Then, he casually took the glass of lemon water from Pei Nanxiu. However, the moment Pei Yuqing took the glass, it exploded in his hand, and the shards fell to the ground. It was as though he had lost control of his strength. Pei Nanxiu was shocked, and his fingers were scratched by the shards. At the same time, the moment the cup exploded, the pressure in the entire double-decker private room suddenly reached a terrifying level. Everyone instantly shrank into a corner in unison. Qin Huan's nonchalant expression changed abruptly. He looked as though he was facing a formidable enemy. "Oh no. Boss doesn't look right. F***ck. Xiaoxing, I told you not to jinx it." Xing Chen, who was flustered, threw away the lollipop in his mouth and whispered, "What happened to Brother Yu? Wasn't he in a good mood earlier? The numbers have been stable. Why does it seem like he has reached a critical point?" Xing Chen had just spoken when the silver watch on Pei Yuqing's wrist began to emit a frantic alarm. Beep.
Beep. Beep. Beep. Beep. Beep. Beep. Beep. Beep.
The beep was like a death warrant. "What's that sound? Whose alarm went off?" Pei Yutong stammered, startled by Big Brother's sudden appearance. Qin Huan glanced at him speechlessly. "What alarm clock?" "Third young master. That's a life detector. Brother Yu's vital signs are soaring. He's about to break through the limit. It's been 2 years. You've been fine. You even survived that dangerous period. How did this happen?" Pei Nanxiu ignored the wound on his hand and looked anxious. Xing Chen picked up a pillow and hugged it tightly. He scowled miserably. "I told you that Brother Yu is scarier when he's quiet. You guys didn't believe me, and even said that I had a crow's mouth. His body wasn't really stabilized, but he was forcibly suppressing it. After suppressing it for more than 2 years, he finally couldn't suppress it anymore." Qin Huan was anxious. "That's not right. Hadn't Brother Yu gotten back together with Lin Yan? The frequency of their meeting wasn't low either. Lin Yan was more useful than any elixir. With her as a stabilizer, how could it not be suppressed?" "Xing Chen, is there a problem with the stabilizer?" Chapter 221. Pei Yuqing, who seemed to have been disturbed by their whispers, glanced at them. They fell silent instantly, not even daring to breathe loudly. "Get Ching Mo to come and see me." Pei Yuqing then headed to the second floor. The alarm on the watch hadn't stopped, and it was getting more and more urgent. Qin Huan hurriedly contacted Ching Mo Jilan, on the other hand, looked anxious as she glared at them. "Why are you guys still standing there? Call the doctor." Qin Huan shrugged helplessly. "You've been by Brother Yu's side for so many years. Is this the first time you've encountered such a situation? There are so many top experts, doctors, and professors. We've invested so much money in them over the years, but they haven't come up with any effective solutions. Even God wouldn't be able to help, let alone a doctor." Jilan gritted her teeth and said, "Then bring that woman here." Qin Huan shrank back in fear. Who would dare to do that without Brother Yu's orders? Xing Chen took out another lollipop nervously and said, "I think so too. It's best not to call her here now. My instincts tell me that there's a problem with the stabilizer." Pei Nanxiu seemed to have thought of something as he muttered, "Last night, I asked Lin Yan to call Big Brother and asked him to meet her tonight. I'm guessing that Big Brother went to meet Lin Yan tonight." Xing Chen blurted out immediately, "Brother, you went to meet Lin Yan tonight? I bet a lollipop that there's a problem with the stabilizer. We can't just do nothing. Regardless of whether there's a solution or not, we have to get all the experts here first." "I'll inform Father," Pei Nanxiu replied. Jilan's face darkened.
All right.
"I've already made the call and contacted the experts in China." At Maple River Residence, after Lin Yan returned to her apartment, she hadn't been in a good state of mind. She had a splitting headache, and it felt as though her head was being pierced by needles. She lay on the bed and slept until the next night. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Wang Jingyang stood at the door and was about to speak when he saw her. "Why do you look so pale? Did you get surrounded by haters again?" Lin Yan was speechless. 100 million haters couldn't compare to Pei Yuqing's destructive power.
"Come in."
"Why are you looking for me?" Lin Yan rubbed her forehead. "Can I look for you for no reason? You've been going out early and coming back late these days. I haven't seen you many times since I moved here." Wang Jingyang's tone was a little sad. Lin Yan rolled her eyes at him. I need to earn money. I don't have time to fool around with you. Wang Jingyang muttered. Since you're working so hard by yourself, why don't you find a boyfriend? Lin Yan was speechless. She had found it. Not only did he look for her, but he also broke up with her after looking for her. Although, it seemed that the breakup did not succeed. Lin Yan. Wang Jingyang gazed at Lin Yan hesitantly.
What are you talking about?
You're single, yet you have the cheek to criticize others. Lin Yan glanced at Wang Jingyang. Was the pot calling the kettle black? She had just broken up with Pei Yuqing last night, so she was in no mood to talk nonsense with Wang Jingyang. She had a lot of things to settle. I have something to attend to. Let's talk later. Lin Yan turned around and left the apartment. You're single, and so am I. Isn't 1 + 1 equal to 2? Wang Jingyang muttered under his breath as Lin Yan left. Chapter 222. The elimination competition for her grandfather's team would be starting soon. Lin Yan had to make use of this time to figure out the rules. She wouldn't make the mistake of letting love and men control her mood and life a second time. As for what Pei Yuqing had said yesterday, she wouldn't agree to it. Lin Yan hailed a cab and headed to her mother's place. Lin Yan knocked on the door. A few seconds later, she heard a voice from inside. With a creak, the door was opened. He Muyun was standing in front of it. Xiaoyan, why are you here? He Muyun glanced at Lin Yan in surprise. She hadn't expected Lin Yan to come. Mom, what's wrong? Lin Yan frowned when she sensed that something was amiss. Nothing. I'm fine. He Muyun smiled and shook her head. However, she looked as though she was trying to hide something. Mom, what happened? Lin Yan knew her mother very well. Something must be bothering her. Is it because of Uncle Xiezheng? Lin Yan glanced at He Muyun and asked. He Muyun frowned when she heard Lin Yan. Xiaoyan, don't spout nonsense. Seeing that Lin Yan was determined to get to the bottom of this, He Muyun couldn't stand her relentless questioning. She knew that Lin Yan would find out sooner or later, so she answered honestly, it's because this house is about to be demolished. Huh? Demolition? Lin Yan looked excited. Mom, that's great. When will it be demolished? Do you want me to come and help? He Muyun was speechless. Xiaoyan, there's a problem with the ownership of this house. So, after the demolition, we won't get a single cent, explained He Muyun. Huh? Lin Yan was taken aback. It's not just about the demolition. Also, your Uncle Xia's company seems to have some problems. When your Uncle Xia came over today, I saw him standing downstairs and he didn't look too well, so I asked him a few questions. What happened to Uncle Xia's company? Asked Lin Yan hastily. He originally said that he would take some money from a friend, but for some reason, that friend suddenly changed his mind. He Muyun sighed. Your grandfather's team is also being ostracized and suppressed for no reason. I'm afraid they won't be able to participate in the elimination competition in a few days. They might be disbanded at any time. What? Lin Yan's expression changed when she heard her mother. The more she listened, the more she felt that something was amiss. When did this happen? Asked Lin Yan. I just found out this morning. He Muyun answered. Lin Yan was speechless. How did so many things happen in one night? And they were all related to the people around him. Yan, your grandfather can't eat or drink because of this. The elimination competition in a few days is the last thing he wants. If the team is disbanded before the elimination competition, I'm afraid it will be a huge blow to your grandfather. He Muyun looked worried. Actually, He Muyun didn't care about the demolition of the house or the ownership dispute. She was worried about Lin Yan's grandfather. Mom, I got it. How is Uncle Xia doing? Lin Yan glanced at He Muyun solemnly. Things aren't looking good. If we can't fill the gap, the company might go bankrupt, replied He Muyun. Announcing the new book's VIP reader group, 771837335. I have you for the rest of my life, sweet and warm. Screenshot of 6,000 plus fans on QQ. Screenshot of all the subscription. Screenshot of at least 20 recommendation votes within 30 days if you can't meet the requirements for fan points, recommendation votes, and so on. You can wait until the requirements are met before you enter. It's late today. If the management hasn't replied, they must be resting. We will continue tomorrow. Chapter 223. Everything had happened this morning. Based on what Pei Yuqing had said last night, it was impossible for Lin Yan not to know what was going on. No wonder Pei Yuqing had been so confident that she would agree to it. She had thought that Pei Yuqing had said those things out of anger, because he had broken up with her. She had never imagined that he would go to such lengths. Not only had he interfered in her affairs, but he had also attacked the people around her to make her submit. A strong sense of disgust and repulsion rose in Lin Yan's heart. Fear had been etched into her soul since a long time ago. Xiaoyan, are you alright? I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to worry. He Muyun looked worried. Lin Yan snapped back to her senses and smiled at her mother. Mom, I'm fine. Oh yeah, I have some work to do, so I have to go. Alright. Go do what you need to do. Don't worry about the family. Okay, Mom. Lin Yan's face turned cold the moment she stepped out of the house. Her temper had been ignited instantly. Pei Yuqing. She had never imagined that Pei Yuqing would be such a person. He had been such a good and flawless person. Not only did she feel fear and disgust, but she also felt disappointment. She felt as though she had been looking up to the bright moon, but her true self was a muddy swamp. What had happened earlier? Had he been putting on an act all along? Lin Yan called Pei Yuqing as soon as she reached the ground floor. The other end of the line picked up the moment she pressed the button. Before she could speak, a man's deep voice was heard. "Essie Bar." His voice wasn't as gentle and clear as usual. It was as though he had fallen into an abyss of ice. The man gave an address and hung up the phone. Lin Yan stared at her phone. Pei Yuqing's attitude made her even angrier. This is totally a threat to her. Lin Yan inhaled deeply and suppressed her anger. She hailed a cab and headed to the address Pei Yuqing had given her. The nightclub was located in a remote alley. The door was rusted, and the sign read Seabed. Those who didn't know better would think that it was an abandoned warehouse. However, when she pushed the door open, she saw a whole new world inside. It was probably because it wasn't time to open yet, so there weren't many people in the bar. Lin Yan spotted a familiar young man in a suit waiting for her. She had seen this man at Pei Yuqing's villa. He seemed to be Pei Yuqing's assistant. Cheng Mo greeted Lin Yan politely. "Miss Lin, this way, please." Lin Yan's expression was cold and infuriated as she followed him. Damn it. After the incident with Han Yishuan, she had sworn to focus on making money and not to get involved in those affairs anymore. She did not expect that in such a short time, she would be played by a beauty to this extent again. This time, she was even angrier than Han Yishuan. He could touch her, but he could never touch the people around her. That was her bottom line. He still wanted to force her to compromise, force her to give in. She never knew how to spell the word soft in her life. In her dictionary, she would rather die in glory than live in disgrace. Recently, I have forgotten to draw a set of peripherals. The latest winners are E19, Nango, and Chi-Chi is a spirit. Please join the group to claim your prize. Today's updated chapter will draw 10 participants. Each of them will receive a cash packet of 10 yuan. You just have to subscribe to it. Chapter 224. Cheng Mo led Lin Yan to a private, double-decker room. Lin Yan stood at the door and scanned the room. The private room was gloomy and cold, and the decorations were luxurious and retro. However, at this moment, the coffee table in the private room was broken, and the vase was also broken. The murals were hanging crookedly, and there were all kinds of collapsed cabinets and decorations beside them. The entire room was in a mess, and she had no idea what had happened. A curly-haired teenager was sitting on the couch with a lollipop in his mouth. A girl in a ponytail was pacing back and forth anxiously. There was a young man leaning against the staircase on the opposite side of the first floor. The man was well-dressed and had long black hair tied behind his head with an unknown metal hairband. There was a white tulip in the breast pocket of his dark red suit. However, the petals of the tulip had been plucked off, and there were only a few wilted petals left. The moment Lin Yan stepped into the room, the three of them straightened up and turned to look at her simultaneously. The girl in black was glaring at her coldly, as though she had a deep grudge against her. Lin Yan didn't have the time to care about them. She turned to Qing Emo, who was leading the way. "Where's Pei Yuqing?" Before Qing Emo could speak, someone suddenly appeared from the side and rushed towards her excitedly. "Sister-in-law. Big sister-in-law, you're finally here." Pei Yutong. Lin Yan's expression softened when she saw Pei Yutong. "Third young master." Big sister-in-law. Before Pei Yutong could finish, Lin Yan frowned and interrupted him. "Third young master, call me by my name, heir."
Why? Pei Yutong had a bad feeling about this.
Pei Nanshi walked over, looking exhausted. When he saw Lin Yan, he asked anxiously, "Miss Lin, did you meet my brother last night?" "If I may be so bold as to ask, last night did something happen?" "I broke up with your brother," Lin Yan replied expressionlessly. Pei Nanshi's face fell when he heard Lin Yan. Pei Yutong, who was dumbfounded, looked as though the sky had collapsed. What did you say?" "You broke up with my brother." Pei Yutong wasn't the only one. Everyone else's expression changed as well. Qin Huan silently held his forehead. "Damn, no wonder." Xing Chen chewed on his lollipop and shrugged. "I told you there was a problem with the stabilizer. All of you owe me a lollipop." Ji Lan, who was dressed in black, looked gloomy as she strode over to Lin Yan. The moment the girl approached her, Lin Yan felt an immense pressure and danger.
Lin Yan, how dare you?
"Who do you think you are?" Lin Yan's face darkened when she heard the girl's words. She lowered her eyes and chuckled softly. "You don't dare? I'd like to ask. I'm just breaking up. Why wouldn't I dare? It's none of your business who I break up with or what it is." "You?" Ji Lan's icy aura engulfed the entire area as her right hand reached for Lin Yan's neck like a sharp claw. Chapter 225. She was so fast. This girl was too fast. She didn't look like a human at all. Lin Yan dodged in a flustered manner, but she still staggered a few steps. Ji Lan gazed at Lin Yan condescendingly, as though she was looking at an insignificant ant. Her eyes were filled with contempt. Qin Huan, who couldn't stand it any longer, stepped forward to smooth things over. "Ji Lan, are you crazy? What are you doing?" Ji Lan glared at Qin Huan, forcing him to retreat. "What am I doing? How dare this woman reject brother you?
What right does she have? Who does she think she is?"
Pei Yuqing was a demon in many people's eyes, but he was also a god in many people's eyes. To them, Lin Yan's actions were akin to a filthy beggar who had dragged her god into a quagmire. She had even stomped on him in disdain. This was intolerable. "Ji Lan, calm down. Don't forget that brother you." Qin Huan pinched his temples. The girl interrupted Qin Huan and glared at Lin Yan with a murderous look. "So what? Since I only need her body, why does it matter whether she's willing or not? I have 1,000 ways to make her realize reality." The fire in Lin Yan's eyes gradually turned into ice as she listened to the girl. ****. Were these people bandits? If she wasn't willing, they were forcing her to be willing? Also, what did she mean by saying that he only needed her body? Sure enough, like boss, like subordinates. Ji Lan glared at Lin Yan. "I'm giving you one last chance. Return to Brother Yu's side and listen to his orders." Lin Yan chuckled softly and enunciated each word carefully. "What if I refuse?" "Refuse?" Ji Lan stared at Lin Yan for a long time before the corners of her mouth curled up. "You don't have the right to refuse." Before she could finish her sentence, she suddenly approached Lin Yan like a ghost. This time, Lin Yan didn't retreat or dodge. She simply allowed the girl to attack her. As Ji Lan approached, Lin Yan's hand moved slowly. Ji Lan's speed was so fast that it was inhuman. Lin Yan's eyes couldn't keep up with Ji Lan's movements at all. By the time Lin Yan saw Ji Lan was already standing beside her. A strong gust of wind brushed past Lin Yan's face. Jilon raised her hand and struck Lin Yan with a seemingly casual palm. Instinctively, Lin Yan raised her hand to block it. Bang! Lin Yan raised her hands in front of her as she stumbled backward. Lin Yan's eyes were filled with astonishment. What kind of monster was this woman? This was the first time in her life that she had met an opponent who could make her suffer. Lin Yan could also tell that Jilon hadn't used her full strength. I say, Jilon, are you alright? What if you kill her? Qin Huan looked at Jilon with displeasure in his eyes. I know what I'm doing. I'm just teaching her a lesson so that she knows her place, Jilon said indifferently. You can't injure him either, Qin Huan continued. If boss returned and saw that Lin Yan was injured, he would be in trouble. Shut up. This has nothing to do with you, Jilon said coldly. Qin Huan was speechless. Jilon stared at Lin Yan as the smile on her face widened. Are you really not going to listen to me? Chapter 226. You can try, Lin Yan replied coldly. Ha! Everyone around you has been implicated because of you. Even so, you don't care? Jilon sneered at her. You. Lin Yan was enraged. It seems like you haven't figured out your place yet. Jilon vanished instantly. She was so fast that Lin Yan could only see a shadow with her naked eye. Jilan's current speed was even faster than before. Before Lin Yan could snap out of her daze, Jilon grabbed her neck. Jilan's grip on Lin Yan's neck was so strong that Lin Yan couldn't breathe. Don't force me. Lin Yan felt dizzy and her consciousness was fading. Force you? Jilon glared at Lin Yan as the corners of her mouth curled up into a merciless smile. Are you worthy? Lin Yan hated this feeling. It was unfamiliar and distant. It had been a long time since she had lost control. Why did she have to provoke her? At that moment, the iciness in Lin Yan's eyes seemed to have been lifted. It started to crack and shatter. In the dim bar, no one noticed the change in Lin Yan's expression. Lin Yan's eyes were devoid of emotion as she grabbed Jilan's arm with her right hand. A second later, there was a loud thud. Jilan's arm was flung away, and she stumbled backward. Astonishment surfaced in Jilan's eyes. At this moment, her arm was in intense pain and gradually becoming numb. Qin Huan, what are you doing? Suddenly, Jilan glanced at Qin Huan. Qin Huan was dumbfounded. What did I do? Didn't you attack me with a hidden weapon just now? Jilan's voice contained a trace of anger. Qin Huan replied, Are you crazy? I didn't even move. It wasn't you? Jilan frowned slightly. Then, her gaze landed on Xing Chen. The lights in the bar were dim, so Jilan had noticed that Lin Yan had sent her flying. She had assumed that Qin Huan or Xing Chen had attacked her with a hidden weapon. Xing Chen was munching on his lollipop as he met Jilan's eyes. Don't look at me. I didn't do anything. Before Jilan could respond, Qin Huan pointed at Lin Yan. Lin Yan, who was out of control, was exuding a terrifying aura as she strode toward Jilan. Her aura made Qin Huan feel uneasy. Why do I feel like this woman has suddenly become so scary? Am I hallucinating? Qin Huan mumbled as he played with the dice in his hand. Is the pain in your body not intense enough? Jilan's eyes glinted coldly when she noticed Lin Yan's expression. Jilan clenched her fists and punched Lin Yan, who was striding toward her. This punch was extremely powerful. Following the trajectory of the fist, one could even hear the whistling of the fist wind. Are you crazy? Qin Huan shouted when he saw this. Lin Yan moved even faster. Before Jilan could react, she had grabbed her by the throat. Lin Yan's back was facing the light, so no one could see what she had done. Even Jilan had no idea what had happened. Lin Yan stared at Jilan coldly. If she wanted to, she could crush this woman's neck in an instant. Chapter 227. At that moment, Xing Chen, who had been munching on his lollipop, suddenly moved. Bang! With a loud bang, Jilan's body was sent flying by Xing Chen's kick. Xing Chen, who had curly white hair, had both hands in his pockets as he glanced coldly at Jilan. Do you want to continue? Lil Xing is angry. Qin Huan, who was standing nearby, slammed the sieve on the table. Xing Chen, what are you doing? Jilan glared at Xing Chen as she bellowed. I'm trying to save you, replied Xing Chen coldly. The bystanders didn't see it, but Xing Chen saw it clearly. If he hadn't kicked Jilan away, Jilan's neck would have been crushed by this woman. Jilan didn't even realize it. How laughable. Even Pei Yutong realized that Lin Yan, who had always looked soft, sweet, and timid, had changed completely. Save me? Do you really think that boss likes her? She is just a stabilizer. Jilan sneered coldly. Jilan didn't understand what Xing Chen meant. She merely thought that boss wouldn't let her off if she hurt that woman. Idiot. Xing Chen shrugged. Whatever you want. Continue. With that, Xing Chen sat back down in the distance. Soon, Jilan stood up and charged at Lin Yan. Lin Yan glanced at Jilan, trying her best not to lose control. If she did, Lin Yan had always known that she was stronger than ordinary people, but she had rarely used it. She hadn't been willing to use it, especially when she lost control of her emotions. She could be more terrifying and extreme than she had imagined. The murderous aura on Jilan's face intensified as she muttered, now that she has lost her effect as a stabilizer, there is no point in keeping her. She will only make boss lose control. She has no right to stay by boss's side. She isn't worthy. Jilan didn't notice that as she spoke, a person slowly walked down the stairs from the darkness behind her. Brother Yu, Qin Huan, who was standing opposite her, saw Pei Yuqing right away. Jilan's face was filled with fear when she heard Qin Huan. Instinctively, she turned around. The moment she turned around, Pei Yuqing suddenly moved. He placed his palm gently on Jilan's left shoulder. In the next second, everyone saw Jilan's body fly out like a kite and slam into a glass wine cabinet. The glass wine cabinet collapsed with a loud crash. The cabinet and the wine inside all shattered into pieces. The scene was a mess. Even the handrail of the stairs was knocked down by the huge impact after the loud shattering sound. The entire private room fell into a dead silence. Everyone kept quiet out of fear as they looked at the man on the stairs. The private room, which was already in a mess, was now even more messy. It was almost like a ruin. Pei Yutong pulled a long face. He was going to start tearing down the house again. What should I do? Originally, she thought that when eldest sister-in-law came over, she could coax big brother. She didn't expect eldest sister-in-law to be so hot-tempered. Now that the two of them were facing each other, wouldn't it be like Mars colliding with Earth? Jilan landed awkwardly on the ground. She ignored the pain and scrambled to her feet. She knelt respectfully before Pei Yuqing. Brother Yu. Chapter 228. Pei Yuqing didn't even glance at Jilan. His eyes had been fixed on Lin Yan ever since he had stepped out of the room. Lin Yan clenched her fists when she saw Pei Yuqing. The man was wearing a white shirt and his hair was slightly messy. His gold-rimmed glasses glinted coldly. He didn't look as gentle as he usually did. His eyes were like bottomless black holes, as though he had become a different person. No, perhaps this was the real Pei Yuqing. The moment Pei Yuqing appeared, no one in the room dared to speak. Everyone retreated, not daring to breathe loudly. Pei Yuqing strode down the stairs and adjusted his sleeves nonchalantly. Then, he raised his head and gazed at the furious girl. Have you made up your mind? Lin Yan frowned when she heard Pei Yuqing. Then, she slammed her hands on the table next to Pei Yuqing. Pei Yutong was more nervous than anyone else when he saw Lin Yan's temper. What was going on? Wasn't she supposed to be a tranquilizer? Big Brother's table was about to be smashed to pieces. As far as Pei Yutong could remember, no one had ever dared to speak to Big Brother like that. Something was going to happen. Something big was going to happen. Pei Yuqing sat on the couch, his aura cold and sinister. Even Qin Huan and Xing Chen instinctively sensed danger. Cold sweat appeared on their foreheads, and they looked at each other in dismay. Lin Yan glared at Pei Yuqing. "Cut the crap.
I have something to ask you."
"Go ahead," the man replied. Lin Yan narrowed her eyes. "My mother's house, Uncle Xia's company, and my grandfather. Did you do all of these?" Pei Yuqing didn't deny it. Instead, he nodded and replied, "Yes." Lin Yan clenched her fists and sneered coldly. "So, this is what you meant when you said that I would agree? You will agree." The man sounded very certain. His eyes met Lin Yan's dangerous-looking eyes. Lin Yan inhaled deeply and suppressed her anger. She tried to communicate with Pei Yuqing. "What do I have to do for you to let my family go?" "You know what to do." Pei Yuqing gazed at her expressionlessly. If Lin Yan hadn't been so agitated, she might have realized that something was wrong with the man. Lin Yan sneered coldly when she heard that. She recalled what the girl in black had said earlier. She had said that she would listen to his every command. "What should I do? Obediently be your canary or a slave? Will they obey your orders?" Lin Yan glared at the man before her, her tone icy.
"I'm really sorry.
Mr. Pei, you probably don't know me well enough. I'm just a stinky rock that won't budge. I hate being threatened. At most, I will perish together." The moment the girl finished speaking, Pei Yuqing's eyes, which had been as still and mechanical as still water, started to ripple. At the same time, the silver watch on the man's wrist began to beep. F***CK. "We're done for." Qin Huan's expression changed when he heard the alarm. The others were also panicking. Pei Yutong was frantic. "What should we do? What should we do? Think of something." Chapter 229. Pei Nanshu looked anxious. There's no progress in Country M's research. Besides, if Big Brother doesn't cooperate, the experts won't be able to help. Pei Nanshu paused before he added, "Actually, Big Brother has gone overboard. If it had been another woman, she might have compromised. However, judging from Lin Yan's character, she would rather die than live in dishonor. I'm afraid that threatening her will only make things worse." Qin Huan had a look of lingering fear on his face. "You're absolutely right. Why do you think no one dared to restrict Lin Yan, even though she was so important? They didn't dare. That girl is too stubborn. Even Brother Yu is stubborn. Even though she has lost her memory, she hasn't changed at all. She's still as hot-tempered as ever. The worst thing is that Boss is out of control. He has no idea what he's doing. He's only relying on his instincts to stop Lin Yan. I don't think there's a way out this time. We're doomed. We're doomed." Ji Lan glared at Lin Yan coldly as she listened to the alarm. Her face darkened. "I told you that she is a ticking time bomb. Brother Yu will be killed by her sooner or later." Qin Huan coughed softly. "You can't say that. If it hadn't been for her, Boss would have died many times. However, now, it's better for her to stay away from Boss." Pei Yutong clutched his head anxiously. F***CK. Didn't you say that Sister Yan is Big Brother's stabilizer? Why has she become a bomb now? If Sister Yan's stabilizer doesn't work, what will happen to Big Brother? Qin Huan scratched his head. "I think the most important thing now is to separate the two of them. Don't let her continue to agitate Boss." Indiscriminate destruction. Pei Yuqing muttered under his breath as he shut his eyes. It was as though he was recalling something that had pained him to the core. His mouth was filled with the taste of blood. The moment Lin Yan finished speaking, Pei Yuqing's watch beeped loudly, at an alarming rate. Lin Yan finally realized that his watch had been ringing for some reason. However, Lin Yan didn't pay much attention to him. She was already infuriated, and she felt as though she had lost control of her body. Her rage had gotten the better of her. "Pei Yuqing, forgive me for being blunt. Even if you have billions of assets and a high status, so what? You're selfish, cold-blooded, heartless, and don't know how to respect others. You won't love anyone. I, Lin Yan, will never fall in love with you, even if I had to fall in love with a cat or dog. In my dictionary, there's no such thing as yielding." Beep, 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 beep. beep beep beep. As the alarm grew louder and louder, Pei Yuqing suddenly clutched his chest. All the blood drained from his face. Brother Yu, boss, Qin Huan, Pei Yutong, and the others' expressions changed instantly. Pei Yuqing sprang to his feet and grabbed Lin Yan's arm with a trembling hand. Lin Yan's eyes glinted coldly. However, before she could do anything, Pei Yuqing's body began to sway, and he looked as though he was about to collapse. You? Lin Yan stared at Pei Yuqing curiously. A second later, Pei Yuqing suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body seemed to have reached its limit. Chapter 230. Qin Huan, who was the closest to Pei Yuqing, tried to help him up. However, he had just taken a step forward when Pei Yuqing sent him flying. F***CK. Qin Huan fell on a pile of debris and whimpered as he held his waist. I almost forgot. You can't get close to boss now. Second young master, third young master. Don't go over. You'll be crippled if you do. Even the three of them couldn't handle boss when he lost control, let alone Pei Yutong and Pei Nanshu. Lin Yan hadn't expected that the man would suddenly vomit blood. Her face, which had been filled with rage, froze. She looked flustered and flustered. Lin Yan stood there in a daze as she stared at the man in front of her. The burning blood in her body cooled down bit by bit. Pei Yuqing had finally reached his limit, and his body fell to the ground slowly. Lin Yan's pupils constricted as she instinctively reached out to support Pei Yuqing. However, Pei Yuqing avoided her touch. Lin Yan's face stiffened. A second later, she grabbed him forcefully. You still have a temper? I'm the one who's about to die from anger. Ahem. Pei Yuqing clutched his chest. Lin Yan paced around anxiously when she saw that Pei Yuqing was about to vomit blood again. In her panic, she compromised without hesitation.
All right.
It's my fault. It's all my fault. Calm down. Calm down. F***. Are you kidding me? It was just a quarrel between a couple. Why did you vomit blood because of me? Lin Yan muttered softly. Was she that fierce? Oh, she had indeed been fierce earlier. However, he was the one who had bullied her first. Forget it. Forget it. He had vomited blood. Lin Yan didn't care who was right or wrong. All she knew was that when she saw Pei Yuqing vomiting blood, she lost all her temper. Pei Yuqing seemed to be resisting Lin Yan's touch. However, when Lin Yan helped him for the third time, he finally stopped moving. Hence, Lin Yan carefully helped Pei Yuqing to the couch and stroked his back. Are you feeling better? Beep, 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 beep. The alarm on Pei Yuqing's watch was still ringing frantically, but it seemed to have slowed down. What the hell is this watch? It keeps ringing. Lin Yan glanced at the watch impatiently before turning to Pei Yuqing. At this moment, the man's clothes were in a mess, his hair was covered in cold sweat, and his handsome face was pale and weak. The eyes under the gold-rimmed glasses were tightly closed as he lay on the sofa on the verge of death. Lin Yan felt guilty all of a sudden. What the hell? She was clearly the one who was being bullied. Why did it seem like he was being ravaged by her? No matter what, Lin Yan didn't dare utter another harsh word. All she could think about was how she had angered him. In any case, he had to calm them down first. Lin Yan softened her voice and patted his back gently. Don't be angry, okay? I know I was wrong. Really, although she did not know where she had gone wrong. Chapter 231. I shouldn't have been so fierce to you, but you can't blame me. It's your fault for attacking the people around me. I was anxious. Lin Yan rambled on. Pei Yuqing's body was too weak, so she could only support him and let him lean on her. Lin Yan felt as though a knife was stabbing into her heart when she saw the pained expression on the man's face. She gritted her teeth and said, "At most, we won't break up. We can get back together. But you can't threaten me anymore. Okay?" However, Lin Yan was amused when she said this. Pei Yuqing didn't care about the breakup. He just cared that his authority couldn't be challenged. Pei Yuqing fell silent. After some time, he said, "Okay." Lin Yan was startled when she heard that. He had agreed. Why had he agreed so easily? Lin Yan snapped back to her senses after some time. Her eyes lit up. "Are you sure? You promised me. You can't do that to my mother and Uncle Xie. I don't like it." Pei Yuqing opened his eyes slowly and stared unblinkingly at the girl before him.
Okay.
Lin Yan replied, "And my grandfather." Pei Yuqing replied, "Okay." Lin Yan was speechless. What was wrong with him? She had caused such a huge commotion. She had thought that he was ruthless. In the end, he had agreed to everything just because she had said something nice to him? Lin Yan stared blankly at the man in front of her. She was dumbfounded. So, why was she so angry that she ran over with the attitude of, "I'll die or I'll die"? Causing such a ruckus? Lin Yan probed. Then, "You can't interfere with my work. You can't change my company or manager. You can't control my schedule. I don't like it. Okay?" However, Pei Yuqing didn't agree this time.
No.
Lin Yan was speechless. He had agreed to everything. Why couldn't he agree to this? Furthermore, he was so determined it couldn't be because she had interacted with many male actors in other productions, right? Why would Pei Yuqing care about her that much? How could that be possible? This time, Lin Yan didn't fly into a rage. Lin Yan's eyes darted around as she looked sad and aggrieved. She pressed her palms together and pleaded, then, "Mr. Pei, can I go to the company you arranged for me later? I still have some unfinished business here. I promise you, when I'm done, I'll definitely come over, okay?" Pei Yuqing fell silent for a few seconds. "Okay." Lin Yan was speechless. As expected, he agreed again. Lin Yan was dumbfounded. She hadn't expected Pei Yuqing to be so easy to coax. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of the silver watch on the man's wrist was getting weaker and weaker. At the same time, Qin Huan and the others, who were anxiously calling for specialists and doctors. Pei Yutong stared at Lin Yan, who was speaking softly and coquettishly. "Didn't you say that there's no such thing as giving in?" Qin Huan glared at his boss, who was listening to everything Lin Yan said. "My boss isn't that easy to talk to." Xing Chen dropped the lollipop in his mouth in shock. "Brother Yu's condition has stabilized. This is the lowest it has been in 2 years. It's indeed a powerful stabilizer." Chapter 232. Lin Yan's eyes lit up when Pei Yuqing agreed. She grabbed his hand, afraid that he would go back on his word. "It's a deal then." Almost as soon as the girl's small hand touched the back of the man's hand, the silver watch on the man's wrist that had been intermittently making beeping sounds stopped completely. Lin Yan stared at the watch on Pei Yuqing's wrist suspiciously and muttered, "This Vacheron Constantine watch is so high-end. Why does it have an alarm function?" Pei Yuqing was speechless. Everyone was speechless. Pei Yutong muttered excitedly, "He's indeed my father. Even his thoughts are the same. Father and son are connected." When Pei Yuqing's watch stopped beeping, Chung Mo, who had been silent all this while, strode over. Chung Mo turned to Lin Yan and said, "Miss Lin, you've misunderstood something. I think I have to explain it to you. What you said just now about your mother, uncle, and grandfather was not Boss Pei's doing." Lin Yan was startled when she heard this. "What?" But he had admitted it himself. Chung Mo nodded and replied confidently, "All orders from President Pei go through me. I have never received any orders from him." Last night, President Pei had indeed called him over. However, he hadn't given any orders. He stood at the side and watched Boss Pei smoke for the entire night. Hence, it couldn't have been President Pei's doing. He had wanted to explain earlier, but he hadn't been able to get a word in edgewise. President Pei had even admitted it, so he couldn't say a word. Now that both of them had calmed down, Chung Mo finally found a chance to explain himself. After explaining, Chung Mo glanced at Ji Lan, who was still kneeling in the corner. The girl's face was covered in cold sweat, but she looked furious. She gritted her teeth and said, "I did it. Brother, you didn't know about it." Lin Yan frowned when she heard this. No wonder this girl had threatened her. She had made a decision on her own. She had been so furious that she had instinctively assumed that Pei Yuqing had given the order. Qin Huan and the others stared at Jilan in shock. Jilan, are you crazy? How dare you do such a thing? Qin Huan exclaimed in disbelief. He hadn't expected Jilan to be so bold. He had really thought that Brother Yu had done it. He didn't suspect Brother Yu at all, as his style was similar to Brother Yu's. Who would have thought that Jilan would make the decision on her own this time? Jilan straightened her back, but her expression showed that she didn't think she was wrong. Xingchen shook his head and showed a pitiful expression. Lin Yan glanced at the girl coldly before turning to Pei Yuqing. Her expression was complicated. If you didn't do it, why did you admit it? Pei Yuqing remained silent. Pei Yuqing remained expressionless. He didn't push all the blame to Jilan either. Instead, he replied calmly, "There's no difference. This is what I wanted to do." He didn't deny it because this was the darkest thought in the depths of his heart. Moreover, she also believed so. Lin Yan was speechless as she listened to him. She couldn't tell how she felt. How could there be no difference? Even if Pei Yuqing had such thoughts, he hadn't done so in the end. No one knew better than her how difficult it was to control yourself when you lost control. Chapter 233. Actually, the only thing Pei Yuqing had insisted on was that she join Summit Entertainment. Lin Yan couldn't help but recall what Pei Yuqing had said to her in the car when Pei Nanxiu had gone to pick her up. At the time, she had asked Pei Yuqing if he would mind if she had a bad reputation and was criticized by the internet for being a bad actress. "I do mind. Do you need me to deal with them?" This had been Pei Yuqing's reply. He had minded the people who had bullied and insulted her. Pei Yuqing hadn't denied it. Had he thought about doing that, or had he thought that she wouldn't believe him? That was why he hadn't explained himself. Although the truth was a dark, dirty swamp, there was a glimmer of light in its depths. Pei Yuqing coughed violently again. Lin Yan glanced at Pei Yuqing's subordinates and bellowed, "Hey, he's vomiting blood. Why are you guys still standing there? Call the doctor." Everyone was dumbfounded by the roar. "Didn't you want to kill boss just now? I heard that you were seriously ill and in a coma. Is that true?" Lin Yan muttered to herself. Pei Yutong immediately chimed in. "Big sister-in-law, you don't have to worry about that. As long as you stay by my brother's side and don't quarrel with him, he will definitely be healthy. What the hell?" Lin Yan rolled her eyes at Pei Yutong. "Am I a Lingji elixir?" Qin Huan, Xing Chun, Cheng Mo, and the others glared at Lin Yan as though they were saying, "Aren't you a Lingji elixir? I'm asking you something serious." Lin Yan snapped angrily. "I'm answering you seriously." Pei Yutong muttered softly. As long as Big Brother didn't lose control, there wouldn't be a problem. Lin Yan felt that these people were too unreliable. She let go of Pei Yuqing's hand and searched for her phone. She wanted to call a cab to take Pei Yuqing to the hospital. However, the moment she let go of Pei Yuqing's hand, the silver watch on his wrist began to beep again. Everyone was speechless. Pei Yutong stared at the watch and said anxiously, "Look, I told you that you can't break up with me."
Ha!
Lin Yan instinctively grabbed Pei Yuqing's hand again. The watch's beeping slowed down, but it didn't stop. At that moment, Lin Yan realized that everyone, including Pei Yutong, looked extremely nervous when they heard Pei Yuqing's watch beep. The watch had started beeping violently when Pei Yuqing had vomited blood earlier. Could it be some sort of medical device that you might use to monitor your body was related to his condition? Instinctively, Lin Yan suspected that Pei Yuqing and this watch had something to do with her. But she couldn't figure it out. How could it have anything to do with her? "Isn't this a watch? Is this a body scanner?" Lin Yan probed. Lin Yan listened anxiously to her watch, which was still ringing. "So this is really a body detector? Every time it rings, it means that you're not feeling well. Didn't it stop ringing just now?" "Why did it start ringing again? How can I stop it?" Pei Yuqing studied the girl's anxious face quietly. A second later, He bent over slowly and planted a gentle kiss on the corner of her lips. With this feathery kiss, he said, "Is this okay?" A second later, the device went silent again. Lin Yan was speechless. Chapter 234. The few people at the side silently looked at the two people who were clearly arguing with each other a moment ago, and now they were showing off their affection. Pei Yutong was elated. "That's great. My prayers were answered. Wasn't this just a bedtime quarrel?" Lin Yan's eyes widened as her eyelashes fluttered. She only snapped back to her senses when Pei Yuqing stood up. She stared at Pei Yuqing in a daze for a long time before she glanced at his watch. Everything was quiet. It had stopped ringing. What kind of magical watch was this? Could it be that she really was some kind of miraculous medicine? At that moment, Chung Mo received a call. He walked over and reported to Pei Yuqing. "President Pei, Professor Wilson and his team have arrived. They are at Cloud Manor now. Should we ask them to give you a diagnosis?" Before Pei Yuqing could reply, Lin Yan asked, "Is the doctor here? Hurry up and let him take a look at Mr. Pei." Chung Mo glanced at Pei Yuqing hesitantly. Pei Yuqing had always hated doctors. Unless he had lost consciousness, he wouldn't have allowed them to approach him. Pei Yuqing said, "Get the car ready." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they heard him. All right, they had reconciled. The world was finally at peace. They wouldn't have to live in fear and bloodshed anymore. Long live peace. Long live the dog food. Jilan was the only one who remained kneeling on the ground, her expression dark and gloomy. At Cloud Manor, Pei Yuqing had all sorts of equipment connected to his body, and he was doing a detailed physical examination. Lin Yan couldn't be disturbed during the examination, so she waited in the garden outside the house. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was her mother. Lin Yan hastily answered her mother's call. "Hello, Mom? What's wrong? What's the matter?" He Muyun's cheerful voice could be heard from the other end of the phone. "It's fine. I'm just calling to tell you that you don't have to worry about the matters at home. I just received news that everything has been resolved." Lin Yan was taken aback. "Everything has been resolved. That was fast, yeah, it's strange. The developer suddenly announced that there has been a change of plans. Your uncle Xia also called to say that everything has been resolved." He Muyun replied. "What about grandfather?" asked Lin Yan. He Muyun replied, "I'm at your grandfather's place now. I'm not too sure about the exact situation, but Lefeng said that the competition can proceed as usual." "That's good." Lin Yan heaved a sigh of relief and told her mother, "I have something to do. I'll look for you at grandfather's place later." Okay. Yan, don't rush. Drive safe, okay? Okay, Mom, I know." Lin Yan ended the call with her mother and hung up. The moment she hung up, she turned around and saw Pei Nanxu standing a few steps away from her. "Mr. Pei," Lin Yan muttered to herself. "Miss Lin, thank you so much for today. If it hadn't been for you, my big brother would have been in danger." Pei Nanxu was filled with gratitude. Lin Yan coughed softly, looking a little embarrassed. She hadn't been able to control her fiery temper today. She had actually exploded in front of her idol. His image was completely destroyed. "I was at fault too. I was too impulsive. If I had calmed down and talked to Mr. Pei, perhaps this wouldn't have happened." Lin Yan replied. Pei Nanxu studied the girl and asked hesitantly, "Miss Lin, may I ask you a question?" Chapter 235. Pei Nanxu glanced at the girl and asked hesitantly, "Miss Lin, may I ask you a question?" Lin Yan asked, "What is it? Why did you break up with my brother? Did my brother do something wrong to make you unhappy?" Pei Nanxu was puzzled. The two of them had been in a good relationship. He couldn't understand why they had suddenly broken up last night. How could that be possible? Before this, Pei Yuqing had always been a godly boyfriend in her eyes. She had almost been tempted to betray him. Lin Yan scratched her head, looking conflicted. She had her reasons. The problem was that right from the start, her relationship with Pei Yuqing had been a misunderstanding. If she hadn't lost control of her consciousness and done uncontrollable things, she wouldn't have been in such a hurry to break up with Pei Yuqing. Damn. Lin Yan was startled when she realized what she was thinking. Had she broken up with Pei Yuqing because she had lost control of her consciousness? Lin Yan collected her thoughts and deliberated over her words before she said, "This is a little complicated. I have my reasons, but it's fine. I will explain everything to Mr. Pei. When the time comes, it's up to him to decide whether to break up or not." Pei Nanchu chuckled softly and said confidently, "No matter what, my brother will never break up with you." Initially, he had been curious as to why Big Brother would care so much about a girl who had appeared out of nowhere. However, when he found out that Big Brother had changed because of this girl, he was certain of Lin Yan's importance to him. Lin Yan didn't know why Pei Nanchu was so sure. Actually, she was puzzled. She hadn't known Pei Yuqing for long. She had even thought that Pei Yuqing was just fooling around with her in the end. She realized that Pei Yuqing was more serious than she had imagined. She was the one who had been fooling around. She couldn't help but feel guilty at the thought of this. "Oh yeah, how is Mr. Pei?" asked Lin Yan hastily. "He is undergoing a thorough examination, so no one is allowed to disturb him. The examination will take a long time, so my brother asked me to arrange for a chauffeur to take you back to rest." "Are you sure he is fine?" "The results aren't out yet, but based on the readings, he is stable." "Don't worry." Lin Yan hesitated. "Pardon me for asking, but what illness does Mr. Pei have?" I can't explain it clearly." Pei Nanchu tried his best to explain in a simple manner. "You can think of it as a disease that can't be stimulated. If you are stimulated, your body will lose control, and you will be in danger." Pei Nanchu's words reminded Lin Yan of the kiss he had given her earlier. Was her influence on Pei Yuqing that great? Wouldn't it really become a Ganoderma elixir? Is that so? Instinctively, Lin Yan felt that things weren't that simple. If it had been as easy as Pei Nanchu had made it sound, they wouldn't have looked as though the world was coming to an end when they had heard their watches ring. In any case, the matter was finally resolved. After she was certain that Pei Yuqing was fine, she instructed the chauffeur to take her to her grandfather's place. You're tuning in to the Bliss Maze Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.